was like a switch was flipped. Was just a kid who grew up strong enough to pick this armor up, and suddenly it fit. God, that was so long ago, long ago, long ago. I was little, I was weak and perfectly naive, and I grew up too quick. Now you won't see all that I have to lose, and all I've lost in the fight to protect it. I won't let you in, I swore never again. I can't afford, no, I refuse to be rejected. I wanna break these bones till they're better. I wanna break them right and feel alive. You were wrong, you were wrong, you were wrong. My healing needed more than time. When I see fragile things, helpless things, broken things, I see the familiar. I was little, I was weak, I was perfect too. Now I'm a broken mirror, but I can't let you see all that I have to lose, all I've lost in the fight to protect it. I can't let you in, I swore never again. I can't afford to let myself be blindsided. I'm standing guard, I'm falling apart, and all I want is to trust you. Show me how to lay my sword down for long enough to let you through. Here I am, pry me open. What do you want more? I'm just a kid who grew up scared enough to hold the door shut and buried my innocence. But here's a map, here's a shovel, here's my Achilles heel. I'm all in, palms out, I'm at your mercy now, and I'm ready to begin. I am strong, I am strong, I am strong enough to let you in. I'll shake the ground with all my might, and I will pull my whole heart up to the surface. For the innocent, for the vulnerable, and I'll show up on the front lines with a purpose. And I'll give all I have, I'll give my blood, give my sweat. An ocean of tears will spill for what is broken. I'm shattered porcelain, glued back together again. Invincible, like I've never been.
Bastion of sanctuary, this is the day that everything will fall. A look of fear caught in the lightning. Your judgment day is coming once and for all. An anthem of death sings out a cry, a whispering voice invading your mind. You're stuck in the web and caught in the lie, all corrupted, so corrupted. Uncertain fate and doubt in your eyes. Can you escape? Who will survive? No way to remain justice, this is justice. Last defender, no surrender. Raise your shield and cry for help, but no one is coming, no one is coming. Walk through fire and straight into hell. Your doomsday is calling, your doomsday is calling. Betrayal breeds revenge, you sought out your own end. This is what happens when you turn your back on a friend. Waste your last amends, you've spent your life condemned, condemned to your cursed doomsday. A countdown to revolution, thrown to the wolves and watch your hope dissolve. Watch it dissolve. The crows are calling for disaster, a twisted happy ever after to behold. Watching as hell rains from the skies, an angel of death standing on high, a warrior beneath in the enemy lines. You were once trusted, once trusted. You're all out of luck and all out of time, with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. So lift up your head and face your demise. Is this justice? This is justice. Last defender, no surrender. Raise your shield and cry for help, but no one is coming, no one is coming. Walk through fire and straight into hell. Your doomsday is calling, your doomsday is calling. Betrayal breeds revenge, you sought out your own end. This is what happens when you turn your back on a friend. Waste your last amends, you've spent your life condemned, condemned to your cursed doomsday.
I don't know why.
Why?
It went. There we go.
There you go.
Thank you. It's because the thing went to default, which is the actual like mic thing, not this. Welcome to. I haven't streamed in a while. Shit breaks. Thank you, Snow. I'll yell at the mods later. Because I know they're there. But I know Wayward is working on Shay, because Wayward also was in their finals.
Is that the Nether?
Yeah.
I haven't played Minecraft in so long. I had a friend.
Yeah, there was a server I was a part of that I used to play a lot with. And, I was like, yeah, I'm going to college, and then they removed me from the Discord. Or, like, they removed me from, like, the side Discord we have, because a bunch of us were just, like, we became friends. And I, like, messaged them, and I was like, yeah, what the hell? And they're like, you don't talk. I'm like, I'm in college!
Why is that removed to do talking?
I don't know, because there was, like, other people. It was just one of those things where I'm just like, this feels like it's bullshit, but okay.
I just remembered that I, like, joined the closed Discord. I'm literally never gonna do anything.
Oh yeah, no, you and Ray are just never gonna do anything in that Discord.
It's just the exclusivity of it
Yep.
that makes me.
Yep.
It's the only reason why I joined.
There's the brand that Markiplier owns. named Cloak, and they had their Discord open for 24 hours, and Ray and then joined. Yes, look at this beauty. This took almost a year?
Oh, you're like invested. I don't have the patience for that.
Well, that was easy because with the new update, you could make these spread. So this is pretty. Wait, and then we got the son. We got Baby Blue Jr. He's a blue axolotl. We did not find him in the wild because they're incredibly rare, so we found the spawn code.
My brother, he loves axolotls, but unfortunately they're illegal in New Jersey.
What the fuck?
I think it's because they're invasive or something. Or no, it's because they're endangered and they can get killed.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are all just moss blocks. This.
That is like insane.
I thought like I would make the new world.
Oh yeah, no. Like I also fucked up the circle, so it has like this weird shape, but I actually appreciate the weird shape. Yeah, that's what it is. I literally just fucked it up that bad. I was supposed to go in a circle, but I like it. How this turned out.
I don't know if anyone else had the books that they made.
Oh yeah, I had like one.
I don't want the.
I think I had like the original.
And I would just like copy the house.
No,
builds that
literally,
they
I
did.
felt so like weak. Just copying like
I
the
know.
house.
It's just like I'm a big boy. I got the Minecraft books.
It's like ooh. How do you know where anything is?
I don't.
I would get lost. all the
I
time.
always forget where the fuck I put the portal in this. So I have to use like commands, but also it's just I keep coming here, and then I found out that, like, oh yeah, like my nether portal is very close to where like this is, because I made one here.
I'm so sad that I'm being forced to eat a Hot Pocket right now because the school did not listen. Like 15 minutes early, they closed.
They do that. They do it.
15 minutes
We
early.
were like sitting in the cafeteria and they just closed everything inside. It's like you're breaking your own rules.
Yeah, they'll do that. We're just gonna turn the mic up. I'm so sorry for people I just made
I'm
this.
still so mad for when they like closed it early, like they went on the weekend schedule and they didn't tell anybody.
When was that?
I don't remember.
It was during some tiny.
Was it like Memorial Day or something?
I was like, it was one day.
I remember that.
It was one day where they did.
I was so upset. I was confused. I was like, wait, it's over now?
Okay, cool. Everything's working. I just want to make sure. Ah, fuck.
I think I still had backup there, but actually no, I think I ordered.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the day everyone ordered, or it was either, or they had some rich people event.
I didn't make a mess. Thank you. It's like
Please be the right Bastion. I was like, I have something else built here. Yep, it is. I can instantly potatoes.
How many like new mobs there have been added since I
There's a shit ton.
I have Minecraft.
This is also a pain in the ass to build, but then we discovered something.
Do you let people help you?
No, this is a completely single world, but all in creative mode.
I just can't. I don't get bored.
Because a lot of this I streamed building.
Okay. I guess that helps.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely helps. But also, I would just have people in like calls and stuff being like, "Hey, you want to watch me build shit?"
It's weird because like building and stuff in Minecraft I would get bored by, but like I can shiny hunt for like hours on end and I don't get bored. And that's literally just encountering stuff over and over and over again.
And here's one of the new
Still
nether
haven't gotten
biomes.
my shiny by the way. Still.
Pokemon.
It's like a special. It's like a wild 8,000.
God, I forgot how much I fucking hate flying around in this. No, it's because a lot of the areas around here are like closed off. Hello. They added Endermen and skeletons to the nether.
Oh.
Yes. to give them more like bob variations, and then they added the Enderman because they can finally like touch Netherrack.
People have been joking about the new Pokemon game because for what was like leaked, the new way of breeding, it breeds with the top Pokemon and the bottom Pokemon. So people are saying they added top and bottom.
God damn it! That's what my brain went to.
I think that's amazing.
Yes.
I think it's fits even better.
Oh my god.
He's gonna be my starter. I was gonna pick him before I even saw how good he was gonna be.
But Weed Cat. But Weed Cat.
I'm not getting the weed cat.
But Weed Cat! Also, I'm somehow in the worst biomes in the Nether. I'm in the basalt biome and they're disgusting. Fuck me! Ah! Don't actually fuck me, game, please, I'm Ace. Fuck!
What's wrong?
Hello, skeleton.
Is that a computer fan?
Yep. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you want to hear my PlayStation?
No, the PlayStation. The PlayStation literally scared me the first time I heard it.
You ready? Hold on.
I don't know now. I gotta know now.
Yeah, Slushy is about to go on
It is so
Genshin.
loud.
It's so unnecessarily loud. Have I been here before?
So scary.
I have.
Evan like explained to me that
Genshin's just one of those games that you need powerful shit to play.
like the PlayStation does that no matter what. Apparently.
Ah. Well, yeah, because if it overheats, it has a fan inside. Which is why they say, like, oh, if your computer has a fan, like, don't play with them, like, they're like, oh, don't play on your bed because you can get stuff, like, stuck in the fans.
That's so dumb. I don't have a desk to play my computer on. Don't say that, Jeff, because there's no charger. No. That's so stupid. Yeah.
Hello?
Well,
Oh.
I like playing with my dad. I know.
That's what I do it with this laptop when I first, because I was like, there's no fan, I don't have to worry about it. It's literally, if you only have a fan, they're like, they have
I know. It will get louder. But like, can't really hear it. Alright, I gotta switch to speaker. It takes whenever I open it, it's like forever to like stop back to speaker.
Actually, wait, shit, there's chest here. Hold up.
I hate doing that. There's literally no button.
Yep.
I can't switch the input.
Why?
I don't know. There's no button for some reason.
I know there's chest here. Give me this. Give me the lodestone. I did not take out anything when I was working in the end.
Gotta call me a liar and it's a game of it. Normally it starts up by me.
Oh no, give it a second. The second you go to Genshin, it's gonna be. Ah, fuck.
I was in it.
Give it a second.
To start it.
Give it a second.
Maybe you have to be a liar.
No, it takes a second for it to register.
Why is it really so?
She's a judgmental cat.
I'm gonna be in your cat screaming on Friday.
Context. Beloved roommate's child loves child, and I'm pulling for him. We originally planned for them to pull, but they're leaving. So, it's gonna be.
I know, right? It's making me out to be a liar. I'm in the game now.
It's like we're gonna take our sweet time. Oh my god! God damn it, the Minecraft curse is real. Or the bullshit is real.
Yeah. No, it's you would hear it if it was on. You, but it's like, oh, you want to show somebody? Like, oh, never mind.
Okay, so there was a running joke that I have bullshit when it comes to finding Minecraft things. This is the second structure I found just flying around.
Oh my gosh! The event is live! My boy!
You got so excited.
Oh my god, I can't do it now. I'm gonna wait till I can have my defense and listen to his beautiful voice.
You're down bad.
The only character I will actively admit is being down bad for.
You are actively down bad for this man.
I love Child. Seriously though, do you not hear it? I don't hear it. It is like playing a joke on you right now.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even hear it.
It's playing a prank.
It's like, nah, you gotta work for that.
Like, this game is actually not that bad. I decided that I was overreacting before. Like, seriously, what's going on?
Sorry, like half the world was generating as I was flying. And I'm in the worst bound to fly in. Cause shit like that spawns. Oh, hello.
I know.
I fell in lava. Ow.
Like, it sounds like it's like on the verge of exploding.
Yeah, that's normal.
You know, like the memes where people are like saying like how like sad their thing reacts. That's basically what my PlayStation sounds like. And nobody's like, actually, it's not that bad. Never mind.
You'd be able to hear if it was starting.
Oh, I hear it.
It's starting up.
It's starting up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry.
Alright, there we go. I fixed it. The music was way too loud.
Did it so you would give it attention? It was all parts where Gene was playing.
Well, it worked.
Oh, hello. That's not terrifying to look at.
Sorry.
Fence poles in Minecraft are way too overpowered, I'm gonna say that. If they can stop lava from falling on my face, I don't have the fucking fireworks. Ew.
My mom is an
Striders!
Really? Yeah. She's like, well, number one is because I'm allergic.
Oh.
And number two, I just don't like them.
Look at the boy!
I'm gonna come home with some form of cat hair on me. Okay.
Wait, Freddy, look at the boy!
Oh my, what is that?
It's a strider!
Oh my god. Is it walking on lava?
Yeah! They're native to the nether. So they walk on lava.
Oh my.
Look at how cute the boy. No, you want to see even better?
You can ride it?
You can ride them!
Excuse me.
It's gonna be miscellaneous. They're also updating the menu, so there's like gonna be like a colored section for like all the colorful items, and when I was heard that, I almost cried. I was like, please no.
There's so many, like, there's like stripped versions of wood now.
Yep.
I'm like,
There's so much stuff. When I went in just to like see, I was like, what is all this?
Wait till you see what's happening underground.
Warped sign?
and it quieted down again. It's like, haha. I feel betrayed.
Go into the main, see what happens. There it is, transportation. You give it a warp fungi, and it just takes you where it wants to
See
go.
if, like, doing my commissions will do it, because normally that's when it gets bad.
We're going on a trip with our favorite boy, zooming through the nether. They also have the rare chance to spawn with like a tiny one on top of them, or like a pigman controlling them. It's really funny. Yeah,
Nice.
they're native to the nether, but also they get really no, like they get cold when they're not in lava. And I'm always like, wait, no, I'm sorry, my boy. No, this way. Also, there's Undertale music playing, and it's the fucking vibe.
I hope my brother never finds your streams, because he will hear me getting both slandered and also saying I'm down bad for fictional characters.
Who isn't though?
My brother.
What are your brother's name?
Oh, he speeds up, speedy boy.
Right, Ren? My brother is cringe.
Now your brother's chill.
No, he's not. Don't say he's chill.
I
He's,
haven't met your brother.
you might hear him if he finishes his shower.
See, it's funny because we both just roast the shit out of you.
You do, both of you. You team up against me.
I
Ah,
don't swear. I won't roast the crap out of you.
there you go. You can keep the saddle, my boy. Time to go back to flying because I like
Teamed up
flying.
against-
No, don't worry. I'll team up with you, and then we'll team up against another.
Oh my god, I found another one. Stop, Minecraft curse, fuck off. No, yeah, like in the server, they're like, oh yeah, like Ren can just find things, and I went, the fuck do you mean I can find things? As we're like going exploring, we're like, yeah, we're looking for a woodland mansion. Fucking spawns. No, there's one time I was playing like in a single world, and I was like, oh yeah, I need like a bastion or something, and it spawned. I just went,
This is the quietest my PlayStation's ever been. Your computer is louder than my
It's
PlayStation.
because I'm here.
It's just like, oh.
It's like, we like this person. We'll be quiet for him. Or you have to do laundry.
yeah, go do your laundry.
You were supposed to.
Go
you
do
were
your-
supposed to help me do my laundry.
See, I'm a terrible influence on people. I will just end up talking.
I came in here because of the cat. It's Lisa's fault. Not really. I love you, but you didn't stop me.
Yeah, blame the cat for everything that works.
I am out of underwear, Lisa. I do need to do it.
Go do your laundry!
Felt
Well, now
that
I'm
one.
petting the cat.
Stop petting the little fluff butt and go do your laundry.
Did you say fluff butt?
Yes.
Exactly what she is.
She's a fluff butt. Oh my god, I keep fighting them!
My son, Einstein, he has, cause he's like a super fluffy cat. He's part ragdoll. His butt is so fluffy. It looks like he's got pants on. I love that about him.
Oh cool, I hear a blaze. Oh, that's why. The spawner's literally right there.
Watch, now that she's gone, it's gonna like start blaring.
If it does, I will fucking laugh. I love how I said this is supposed to be a building stream. But I'm just, you know,
We're
exploring.
just going around.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can get
Oh fuck!
I'm hoping I can get my broski to play today. Because if I do, then I can get him to play Genshin.
Oh my god.
And then I can help him and help myself at the same time by farming the Animo Cube. Because he needs to for venting. See, it works.
And you need it for Scaramouche.
I do. If
I
I,
also-
get him. If I get him.
Imagine you do all this farming
then I'm
just
not gonna
to
get him.
not get him.
I wouldn't be surprised after what Zhongli did to me. I gotta prepare for the worst. Seriously though, how do you lose a 50-50 for a character twice in a row? How?
I can't tell you that, Chief. I won both Xiao's 50-50s I pulled for him.
I wish I had your luck. No, because seriously, how many 50-50s have you run in a row? And I've only won one in my entire time of playing.
I've won 5 in a row. That is my highest. I'm currently at like a 3-something.
Because like, I can go in the character archive and like see how many limiteds I've done.
Hi! Hi, baby! The Skunkly's here.
I have
Skunkly
5
stopped by.
limiteds. I have 5 limiteds, right? And I have a C1 Chi-Chi and a C1
Why is there a cow-
Keqing
why-
and then a
oh.
Diluc.
Oh, hello. Oh, God. That spawned a chicken. I've spawned a baby chicken in another. Oh, no.
And all of my 5-star characters are from losing 50-50s. Because the only standard banner 5-star I ever got was the weapon. So.
I'm so sorry that I've cursed.
Oh, you almost fell. This game has betrayed me. That's what I get for being a free to play.
So I have oh my god, I have 2 cows, and 3 chickens. Just vibing in the nether.
In the nether?
Yeah.
There's-
Oh,
Oh. He said no.
it's because this portal's out in the open. I have this one, and then I have other portals that are kind of just like, fuck it, we ball type shit. Oh yeah.
Look
I
how
also-
much I have saved. Look
I
at
also have not shown off this yet. Very nice, very nice.
I am.
Yeah, I've also have not shown off this area. Before you asked, yes, I cleared out an entire mountain.
Why?
Cause I was
Did it
gonna,
do you?
oh no, I was gonna build like a secret little shop area. But again, ADHD brain goes fucking burr.
I'm back.
Oh good, you can see where the part where a new build area is coming in. Yes, I hauled out an entire
Is
mountain.
that bedrock?
No, it's the new block.
Oh, I
What
know
new
it is.
block?
Shulk.
Ooh, it's very pretty.
It is pretty.
It's
You just
Are
It's
you
in-
getting the stuff that you're breaking?
if you hold on something, you can. No, I'm just breaking it because if you kill a thing on like the particular like one of these blocks, because there's multiple of them.
But it's so pretty.
I know it spreads and it's kind of annoying. Yeah, the catalyst, it spreads and it's kind of annoying. Because I'm gonna have buildings soon here. Wait until you see my end. The end was like the actual like big thing I made. Oh,
you just made that.
I hauled out the mountain. Yes.
Do you know I've still never beaten Minecraft without creative mode?
I've never done it by myself. I've done it with other people.
I feel like it's been louder than that though still.
I've never done it in hardcore, but I do need to remake a hardcore world.
I did a hardcore world. I mined all the way to bedrock, right? I was so proud of myself how good I was doing. And then I went to kill a cow, but then the cow killed me. How did the cow kill
Did
you?
it push you in the-
It pushed me into a sea of lava.
Oh
Uh.
no.
Nah, so the first one I had mods downloaded, so I went to go back to vanilla, it corrupted the file, and then I went to restart it, and I kind of just never touched it. So that might be a goal. But yeah, welcome to the end.
I think what you've been doing with that is so cool.
Holy crap. I don't swear. But if I did, you could insert
No
a word
swearing
there.
here.
Why is that so cool?
I'm a sucker for lining, and it's just chef's kiss.
Oh yeah, no, this is with the shaders back on that I had. Also we got the purple grass because of my texture pack, which I thought would add a little bit of the vibe to it.
It made me want to get back into Minecraft, but it's not gonna last very long.
Get back into Minecraft. You
It's
see,
not gonna last very long.
no, it's funny because I couldn't play for the longest time because I forgot the password thing to the Mojang because it's on my mom's account. I changed it finally, but I think it was hilarious. And then I was like, oh yeah, Minecraft. I haven't played that in a while. Dream SMP gets popular. Well, shit. Yeah, I need to figure out because I want to do like a smoke effect here because this looks like an eye, and I might change it to like look like a giant ender eye.
Is your like texture pack the reason why the portal looks like all funky?
Yes.
Okay.
How many texture packs do you have in there? Only one?
I have one and then I have a shaders pack.
Oh, I see. The only kind of texture packs I've ever used is when they gave us the free demos for
Yeah.
like, the store texture packs.
Flurries are going to start where I'm from at 7:46.
Like snow flurries?
Yeah.
Oh my
What
god.
other flurries are there?
Yeah, here's.
McDonald's flurry?
Oh no, it's from the shaders pack. But yeah, this is how everything looks like normally. The grass is green.
On the other side.
I want to see what my homeland
That
is
is
like right now.
actually really loud.
Yeah. It does get louder though.
I was like, now I can actually hear it.
You're so pretty, kitty. You know, I've noticed a bit of your hair on my clothes, and I'm not that miffed about it, but I am concerned for when I go home.
The one thing is, I'm mad I didn't do all 12 of these. But that's gonna be a different thing.
I'm gonna pretend to know what I'm talking about.
I know.
These lead to another end dimension where you can get the wings.
Seriously?
Is that new?
Yes.
I never.
And it's not new-ish, but it's new in the context of you. Yes.
I've never played Minecraft like seriously. It was just like creative.
Yeah.
Not
Well, I
easy.
liked playing survival mode, but my brother hated creative. Oh, not creative. My brother hated survival mode. So I couldn't really play it.
I'm the person who broke the game, and I have a Mending Infinity mode saved in any world. Because they updated that you couldn't. It was a recent thing. I don't think I did it on stream. If I did, whoopsie, someone got definitely fired from their mod job because they let us have this bow. Because I left the game twice, and I made a world where you could do it because there was an update. Because again, they added it, they didn't add anything else. So I just went into both those updates, put everything together, and then I saved it, and it never got rid of it. And then we have Baby Blue Jr. that just vibes. Who's a blue axolotl? Okay. So if you want to figure out how to get mending and affinity bows in your world, just break the game. Because I don't think they patched it still. Yes, welcome to the new end dimension.
It's so pretty.
It is.
Again, I have a texture pack where you have this shit.
How like old is this one?
Couple years.
Couple years.
Oh my
See,
god.
I just can't do that.
Yeah, I don't have the patience for that either. I'd be long gone.
I would get sick of it.
Actually, I wouldn't have deleted it. I would have just made a new one and forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the boat where you can find the Elytras.
And you can see that most evident in my Stardew Valley playthroughs.
No, I'm the same way. My poor Stardew. I haven't touched my Stardew world in forever, but I've also been debating getting a new one just because I have mods installed.
Who's your favorite bachelor/bachelorette?
Sebastian. Okay, normally Sebastian. With mods, it's Vincent and his mother Olivia. Or not Vincent.
Homewrecker!
Listen, you can date them both! No, she's not married. She literally just has a kid. Like, she's not married. She's a bachelorette. Olivia's very smoking, and she's a sugar mama, and then her kid is just...
Who's the... I know Stardew Valley Expanded. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Who is the chick that works at JoJo Mart? I'm in love with her.
Claire?
Yes.
She's really pretty too. I literally cannot find her because my JoJo, I downloaded after I completed the community house. So I just don't see her very often. I'm really mad about that.
Dang. So I don't play games. Apparently I live in a bubble.
Stardew Valley. I love
Stardew Valley is one of those like game. If you're interested in gaming, I will recommend it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a silly little farming.
It's like one of those starter games where it's like, oh, you want to get to gaming? Here you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I should put it on my Christmas list.
Yeah. And it's cheap too.
Is
It's-
it?
It
Yeah.
goes on sale like all the time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Cause like,
It's like only 15 on Steam.
Yeah.
oh,
Also, I have another game recommendation that's like really nice.
just exit out of Minecraft.
No, I put it down.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Where is it? Unpacking. Super.
Packing?
Yes, it's a game where you literally just unpack a person's like entire life, but you can put stuff like everywhere. Like you get like the entire house to put like furniture, like
Oh.
appliances away, but like the sound effects. And then I also got Blooming Mechanic, which is a dating sim for free.
I'm
Dude.
making a dating sim.
Listen, the character's hot. I
Wait,
will
wait.
admit.
So like game works, you just like make.
Yeah. I'm making a game.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm
so-
doing too much.
When you not do too much.
Shut up. Alright, I'm going on. My brother is entering the chat right now. Come hither, brother of mine. Why does I got 2 freaking voicemails?
Just yell at him and be like, hey, by the way, someone's streaming. Don't say stupid shit.
Hello.
Hi.
You didn't start with your
Ooh.
screen.
I also have
I didn't hear it.
pretty Galaxy Sky.
Oh, that's so pretty.
And then
just letting you know, Ren is streaming.
So don't say anything too personal or
So
else
don't say
something will
anything
get
too
thrown.
personal.
Don't trauma dump.
Oh no, we've trauma dumped too much on this stream.
Okay, so trauma dumping is okay.
You just said you pooped yourself. That's so personal. You should have said that.
Oh,
playing
also
Genshin right now, by the way.
Also, the zombies got overalls. Oh shit!
Zombie has overalls?
There's a new event, and guess what? My boy is in it. He's
Where
back.
did he go?
It's been a year, but he's back. I'm so happy about this.
Child is
information.
alive. Oh wait, no. Let me also show you the other new thing.
It's really making me want to play Minecraft, but this one's freaking dead.
Yikes. What are you doing?
Wait until you see the Underdark.
The what?
You should play Genshin so we can play together. Yes. You literally only play when I'm not playing. That's so cringe of you.
Did I just put Bedrock? No.
What do you mean exactly?
Ah fuck.
Tell me you're doing it on purpose now?
No, because I don't want to play it. I won't play it.
You're cringe.
Hey, Brittany.
What?
Who do you like more?
Oh, Hatham, our child.
I forget his name. Rhyperior or the Geodude's last stage, Golem?
Rhyperior.
Oh yes, welcome to the.
Whoa.
Oh no, this is a mind.
Why?
Not the thing. Hello.
What is that?
That is a glow squid. And I fucking despise these
Oh,
things
playing that.
It updated.
because we lost the moon bloom to them.
I've been
We
seeing
lost the
TikToks
children
about
to
it, I
them.
think.
Did you make that?
No, this is a natural spawning structure.
What?
You should get it.
No.
Yeah, they updated the mine shaft so they're
So I don't
incredibly
want to.
deeper below. Oh hey, there's emeralds.
Dang.
Yeah. Also, all my ore glows, so that's if you like play, it's not gonna look like this. But also,
I can't
wait,
find
cottage,
it.
lush.
Find what?
Rhyperior.
I really thought you said that. I was supposed to be like, what?
Yes, welcome to the cottagecore lifestyle of the lush biomes. Actually, wait, I'm incredibly close to what I want to actually show you.
Oh my god, are you serious right now?
What?
What?
The way that they released the characters, the Pokedex is so out of order.
Oh. Did you see all the returning Pokemon for Scarlet and Violet?
No.
I'm depressed.
Oof.
Why?
Cause Scolopede's not coming.
That
Oh.
was literally so obvious.
Ooh.
Where is it?
Why? Why doesn't he deserve to be in the main game?
Oh fuck. Of course it throws me into fucking.
But you know who is coming back?
Who?
Delphox.
Oh yeah, but you have to get up through Pokemon Home.
You do?
Oh,
Yes,
of course.
to get our
What is that?
Gen
This is an ancient city, aka hell.
That's so weird.
Why is that weird?
Because why are they taking up a Pokedex spot if they're not even going to be in the main game?
My question is, why is the warden spawned?
My question is, what happened while I've been playing this game?
A lot of
Wow.
things updated, my guy.
I gotta boot up the Switch. Plug it in.
Oh shit.
Oh, there's a bug in here.
Yeah, there's always a single fly in here.
That is so annoying. I hate flies.
Lisa looks like she's on
No,
the verge of
fuck,
death.
I'm on wool. I'm on wool, fuck off. Get the fuck out of here. Why is there a warden pre-spawned?
Do you still play Minecraft?
Not really.
Really?
Why would you say that?
Because I'm playing Minecraft.
It's been a long time.
Because Ren is playing Minecraft. And the game
Where
is
is
a
it?
lot different than I remember it
Where
being.
is
Yeah,
it?
no, literally.
Oh no, do you... Shut the fuck up! Oh,
I feel like a grandparent right now.
Ah!
I feel like I'm so confused right now. What is that?
I feel like
That
I'm
is the
so
warden.
out of the loop.
Oh, you're
that is-
big.
That is the one boss in the game that everyone says, if you see this motherfucker, run.
Oh,
Really?
well,
You can't, he two-shots you in netherite armor, which is the most powerful armor in the game now. And he's also blind. Yeah, he's blind, so if you make noise, like, he'll follow it, especially with, like, the shrieks. So it's like those things. He'll follow them. So yeah, he knows when you're moving.
That's so scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying, especially since, again, I have night vision.
I would wet myself.
No, I can make the situation 10 times worse. This is what you will see without night vision.
If you drink
Oh.
milk, you get rid of your potion.
Yes.
I didn't know
I
that.
didn't know that either.
So yeah, imagine just seeing that,
That's freaky.
and with no light.
Well, you can't die. You're in creative.
How has
right?
your week been?
I also don't have any armor on, so he can, in fact, you know, fuck around and find out.
Are you missing your precious older sister?
No.
Dang.
That's so mean.
That's so cruel.
I mean, he gets stuck with them for a week, so.
Who?
yeah, I'm
Joke's
going
on
back
you.
all next week.
I know, I heard.
You did?
Also another
From
thing is
who?
multiple of the wardens can spawn at a time.
Stinky's such a snitch.
Well,
It was
I'm
supposed to
just
be a
not gonna
surprise.
dig too deep.
Oh no, we now literally go to negative 64.
Negative 64.
Or
That's
negative-
disgusting.
Or negative something.
It
I
should have
don't-
been negative 69.
It
They had the
should've-
perfect chance.
Wait, you know, here I can tell you exactly how deep we go.
Oh.
Did you know that Father got uncomfortable when I laughed at the number 60?
Ah, fuck.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 60.
It does.
Yeah, about 64, 63.
He was like, I wasn't expecting you to find that number funny. And I was like, it is funny though.
It's funny number. What the fuck did I find? I don't think I was supposed to find this.
I had to have a Hot Pocket for dinner.
I was not supposed to find this.
It wasn't my choice. They closed dinner. Before
I accidentally
was
took a shit
supposed
This
Yeah,
one-
I was not supposed to find this. Oh, it's all the
I was gonna
redstone
ha-
stuff for
but
this.
instead, I was gonna have cereal, so I guess it's not that big of a.
What are you for?
What the frick is that?
It's all the redstone mechanics for like the lights and stuff. So because you can use these for
I just don't know what to do now.
Why don't you know what to do?
Because of the way I'm trying to make my starter Pokemon.
Can I have my heart bar back game, please?
The second thing you choose is the secondary type.
Uh huh.
So I have to choose something where the
just
secondary type is ground for
There we
where
go.
I
I have so many
You
screenshots
want
now.
your earthquake, don't you?
Yeah, what the hell is this? Cause you are not normal. This is
Is
just
it?
cool to look at.
I'm wearing 2 layers
I
right
mean, I used to Have you did the filter?
now. No, I forgot, honestly.
Oh, you
We
should
haven't
do-
needed it. It's getting to winter time.
Huh? To clean the filter?
Yeah.
You should. Like, what if like you were just be like, oh,
So
it could be prepared
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
stuck.
I'll do it. I'll do it sometime.
sometime.
I should probably drink something because I might drink it.
I'm for now just gonna fuck around and find.
I mean, I don't want to go. I want to go Groudon, but I feel like that'd be too overpowered for a
Oh,
starter.
he fucking smells you.
You can make your starter epic.
Yeah. I also have like subtitles on because like I'm Oh.
Warden's heartbeats.
Yeah.
Fire crackles.
So I wanted to have
Warden steps.
something that was fused with
Warden
Gyarados
whines.
because Gyarados
Warden
is
sniffs.
Ugly.
It's like again, I can naturally hear, but I just like having them because there's sometimes like I'll just be exploring.
Because he is.
why?
Because he literally has his mouth open all the time.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He closes it when he bites.
Oh, shut up.
I'm pretty sure he closes
I
it
really
when he
want
bites,
squishy
so it
thing
looks
now.
super weird.
It does look weird.
I really want a squishy thing.
Because it's not natural.
Again,
Only in
I
this,
Squish it.
more
I mean, I have a
recent
bunch of
that
it on Amazon. I can't
Yeah.
just order a pack and just be like, here you go, get some squishy.
Do you remember when they finally put the shiny
Christmas.
in it?
Book and quill, thank you.
I feel betrayed
used to
by
write
Pokemon in
stories.
the anime. I feel
I would be
betrayed.
like,
Why?
because
Story
Ash
time.
was never supposed to become the
Yep.
Pokemon champion.
Look, let my boy be happy. Fuck!
No.
Why
It
not?
it took him 25 years. Let him be happy.
I will never let him be happy. He's supposed to die in every movie.
Ooh.
Ash.
Ash.
Seriously?
Yeah, literally, me and my brother would watch every Pokemon movie to see when he would die.
That's not why
There's
I
literally
watch
top 10 Ash death videos.
Yeah,
Why
that's
is
not
he
that.
supposed to die in every movie?
Because he just does.
Why?
In the first one, he got shot and turned to stone.
Oh my! I think I can
In
remember.
Where?
One.
What
In
was the
second
one?
he drowned.
I think I watched the stone one.
Yeah. What was? Did he die in the third one?
Yeah, I was like, I think I saw the stone one because that's when Pikachu just loses
Yeah,
fucking
that's when
mind.
Pikachu
Yeah.
cries. Everyone
was
knows
sad.
that scene. I used to have that movie on VHS.
Oh my god.
VHS. Wow.
I watched that movie plenty of times. He died in the Latios and Latias one though, didn't he?
Yeah, like this is such a pretty like.
In the Manaphy one, he drowned again.
Ah, fuck!
I think so.
And the Victini one, he suffocates in space.
Yeah.
Of course. You say that as just I have fucking Papyrus theme coming in. Where?
I'm trying to remember. Does he die in Latios and Latias one? I don't think he does.
Wow.
Yeah. So good one.
Oh, there he is.
I don't remember.
Hey, bestie.
If he does.
No, but someone else dies.
Who does? Oh yeah. Dude, that was sad.
Survival mode. You gonna try to kill him?
I don't understand how Ash
Hey, bestie.
gets knocked out by his fingers getting crushed in the Celebi one. How do
No, you can
how do
kill
you
me.
How do you get knocked out from someone stepping on your fingers?
You wanna die?
Yeah. Hey, bestie. Hey, bestie.
What's up? Oh!
It was just an excuse to get him to let go of the Celebi.
Dang!
Yeah, he one shots you. I also did that with no armor. But yeah, he two shots you with netherite. And it's like absolutely batshit insane.
I animated part of my final today.
Will you show it to me?
My
I
son.
don't have it on me.
Aww.
unfortunately.
When it's done, will you show it to me?
Yeah, because I'll have it all saved and put together.
Actually, quick pit stop. We're gonna stop by Skyblocks. I need to
can
collect
see
my
what
money.
I might do next year.
Yeah.
You only dorm
Oh
people
my
in
god,
your
it's
year.
beautiful.
Huh?
Do you only get a dorm people in your year?
Never
I
mind.
don't think so.
My stats suck.
What?
I don't know, honestly. Are you only able to dorm with people in your year?
No.
No? Dang.
I mean, yes.
Oh wait, now I'm
What?
confused.
You can dorm with older people.
Okay.
But it's you, because again, when you do the form, it's like if you know someone, you can request a room with them.
Oh my god, he's gonna suck for so long.
You
So
suck.
I wanted to make it balanced in the beginning, so he only has, so it's a Magikarp and what's it called?
Damn, none of my online friends are on.
Golem. Because I wanted to make it balanced. So
What
there's
does that
Squirtle.
look like?
It's straight up just Magikarp's body, but Golem's head is there.
Do you remember when we watched Detective Pikachu and the Pikachu was like kicking the Magikarp so it would evolve into a Gyarados?
Is that a good movie?
It was amazing.
It was on my list.
Me and my brother loved it because of all the Pokemon stuff.
Of course.
No, dude, we kept looking at each other when stuff we thought was really cool happened. Like, I don't know if you know this, but there's a god Pokemon. He's like literally
Of course
God in the Pokemon world. And like Pikachu, I'm pretty sure at some point he says like, "Oh sweet Arceus," and me and my brother looked at each other like, "Yes, they referenced God."
Oh, I was like, why am I just listening? Why has it just been Undertale music? It has not been shuffled. Whoopsie.
I only have
That's right. That's what you deserve.
Passive.
So it's gonna take so long for me to progress, just like at all.
Oh yeah, so we go from Undertale to corpse music. That's fair.
I will never pronounce Arceus' name the way they changed it. Do you know why they changed his name?
But she.
Yeah, it's because his name in like the good old UK is the word butt. So they changed it to Arceus.
Wow.
But I will forever call him by his OG pronunciation, Arceus.
There's a fleshlight on this route. and
I
it's
misheard that word so hard.
I want to say
Oh hey, I got one
in
health.
in the Pokédex game, did they call him Arceus or did they call him Arceus?
I don't remember. I'm not
This is a XL, so it's big. I'm gonna pull up the Pokédex Pro to see what they pronounce his name.
Oh my god, are you gonna try?
Why?
The typing doesn't work like that. I have to restart real quick.
See ya.
Alright, see ya. Bye.
Thank you for letting me really I'm gonna go charge my Switch now.
There he is. Oh my god, like all those versions of Arceus.
No, you can't leave.
Nope. I did the rename in the Pokédex.
Well, this is fine. I'll accept
What
death.
is your favorite Arceus version?
You fell into the void. I know I did, bitch. I know I did. Ah, fuck.
Go back. Add Rocket X.
What do you want? What, baby?
Baby.
What is it, Skunkly?
That's interesting. The Pokédex Pro goes up to black and white.
Yeah, it did.
I think it's interesting that they have a bunch of 3D models for the Pokemon before X and Y. Venusaur's doing a little jig in his animation.
I'm doing a little dancey dance.
Yes, he's jamming.
Excuse, wait, how many mining skills do I have? Oh, I have 7,000. Or 70,000.
Charizard's model looks better in the Pokédex Pro instead of X and Y.
Don't disrespect my boy.
I'll forever do that. Everyone is so upset with him right now.
What did he do?
He's been I don't know what the right word is, but everyone is sick of him. They're sick of seeing him all the time.
That's
Charizard.
fair. Get the fuck out of here.
Like, literally, people are saying that, like, Charizard used to be their favorites, but because of how much he's been pushed, they hate him now.
Okay, that I can see why.
I need water. I'm dying.
Don't die. I don't want to fill out an instant report.
You will. I'll force you to.
Yeah, you'll just fucking revive as a ghost. Oh, when was this sent? Please tell me this was not sent too long ago.
Was school better today?
Not really, it's still school.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay, so I was wrong. No matter what, it just always does their primary type, so I think that a good one. But I won't.
Cool.
Yeah, I was like, I won't mind. Important text message was sent to me.
Did you ever make your Christmas list, by the way?
I what?
Your Christmas list?
I did. Remember you were here.
Over Father's.
Oh, no.
You need to, because he's going to buy you a bunch of clothes.
I mean, I gave them a couple of things, but you know.
But you know how they are. They buy you junk if you don't tell them.
They buy you junk no matter what.
That's true. They already told us they bought junk already, so.
My god.
You know,
Snowy Plains. No, I'm gonna build a Christmas house. Fuck that shit.
They're going to give you, like, how to be a man manual.
Ew, fucking disgusting. Please tell me this is like an actually, like a Snowy Plains. Oh! Oh! Yeah, that's some bullshit right there. Did I tell you I actually got the achievement one time to find all the biomes in a game? And it was straight survival. I did it all without any creative mode. It is because I was that one person in the game that explored so fucking much that everyone else hated me. Cause there was a time.
I mean, I'm not at all surprised by that considering your exploration in Sumeru right now. What's that laugh? That was like a cackle.
It's because I was scratching the back of my ear and I didn't want to laugh while I was doing it because that might hurt. But no, I just explored so much, enough that I was like the second person on the server to get like a trident. And I had like a pace spawned. Apparently we also ended up making like an actual like spawner. This is very tiny, but I'm gonna build here because it's nice.
I'm gonna be coding tomorrow. You got any pointers?
No.
Oh, I was like, I don't even know how to code, don't ask me.
Oh.
I was like,
I
I don't.
technically should be practicing tonight, but it's a Wednesday. I'm out.
Yeah, I was like, it's a Wednesday. I can stay up late, I can chill.
He gives us time in class anyways. So.
Yeah, I hate when people are like, oh, you should do your work like the day before. I'm just like, 50% of the time, like actually no, like 70% of the time, my teacher's like, yeah, we're just gonna work on this in class.
It's my final though, and I still have so much to do, especially for that one.
Well, especially if it's your final, they'll definitely give you time to work on it.
I know. But it's just I am kind of
You're pushed for time.
It's because I have so much planned for it. I feel like I put too much in it, so I might be crunching myself. But I shouldn't worry too much because if I feel like I absolutely have to, I do have Thanksgiving break to work on it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna be vibing. I'm just gonna be chilling.
I would like to just be vibing and chilling.
Does a 24-hour stream, because why not?
But I'm nervous.
I might actually do a 24-hour stream. I might do it that Friday.
That Friday.
So literally like next week.
Oh wait. Oh, okay, not this Friday.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Okay.
We started, right, Brittany?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I have that now.
What?
Mercy's and lunch lax.
I had Elytra. Why am I just doing like the boring flying?
That's amazing. What is it?
We made sure.
Uh-huh.
Oh wait, I have to be careful because the new snow blocks are added in.
See, that's why you should have just done Groudon. That wouldn't have been that bad.
It's randomized when you have, I don't know if it's going to stay forever, and it is. Oh, he's getting moving to fighting now. I already gave him that, it's fine. I'm gonna get a lot of XP every time I beat him, so.
Also, I finally have to use the bathroom. Oh, Eric's live. Fuck! Eric, why did you go live when I was trying to vibe? Oh, fuck. Ow. I'm sorry, baby. I scared her.
Before I get any farther,
What?
I should just check to make sure he's ground yet. Okay. Did I tell you they added shinies?
No, you did not.
No, they added shinies to this.
That's cool.
They made it so there's like special colors for the fused ones too. I think so at least. Either they were saying that or they were saying that they just had to have the normal but like different colors infused.
She's trying to kill me. Ow! Oh! It's my fault. I'm bothering her. Do you think I care though? No.
Yeah, I have 5 Pokeballs now. He wants me to complete the Pokedex. I'm not doing that. The Pokedex in this game is every single fusion. You have to be insane to do that.
Lacey. Her claws got stuck in my sock.
Smeargle. That could be cool. But I don't know what certain people have, so I don't know it. I'd probably just get sketch wasted, to be honest.
Oh.
But
Lacey.
if I just spin a tooth,
She tried to run away today.
Get back the right time to hear that.
that's what Mewtwo does now.
No, it's not. She never tries to run away.
Like, she's curious. Like, she'll do, like, the stride to go to the door, but she's never done, like, the full, like, trot that she did.
Like, you know Lacey's never tried to run out. She's not bad like Cleo is. That's right. I'm calling your cat out. How is Lacey bad?
She's trying to get out.
No, it's only one time.
She's curious.
No, Cleo tried. We have to watch the door all the time because Cleo tries to get out so often.
Okay, and
She's.
you have to watch the door?
No, I don't. She has probably outlived her children.
I mean, yeah, probably.
What?
We discovered apparently from the vet that Cleo has had children before. But because Cleo is now an indoor cat, she has probably outlived her children.
Yeah, probably.
I wish we could have seen them. I want to know what kind of kittens Cleo would have birthed.
Oh.
Ow! Oh my gosh, she's so vicious.
That was a jealousy. That was a jealousy meow.
So cruel my cat is. Wanting to kill me.
Okay. We're gonna do spruce boar. Also, what are some other blocks that I don't use very often
I
for
mean, I'm
building?
playing Pokemon Black and White right now. So how do you think I feel?
You're playing and then you also have Genshin pulled up.
I'm gonna get a shy.
You're gonna get a what?
I found a Rolls.
Ooh,
It was male.
delayed time.
Should I get a Talonflame and the Gallade?
I think you should actually make your Ralts a Gardevoir. Yes. I
I'm-
stand for male Gardevoir supremacy.
Yo.
It doesn't make any sense now.
Yes, it does.
If it did, then the game would be banned in Japan.
What does that even mean?
It's a Mega Evolution.
The fuck is a Mega Evolution?
Super cool. Hey, the Mega Evolution is still epic. I will still.
Honestly, I'm not really a big fan of its Mega Evolution either way.
I like its shiny Mega.
Fuck
Yeah,
effort.
same. I'm just gonna one-shot by it, but
Why are you coming towards me? Hello, baby.
I'm just using
Hello, I'm the chosen one.
What'd you say?
This budget was so overpowered.
You're overpowered.
I love how I will just literally build new shit. Actually, let me get obsidian to build a portal to like get here easier.
And since I'm a water ground type, that hurt hard. Wolbert fainted. No.
Actually, I'm gonna do this a little bit farther away.
He poisoned Wolbert.
I've been farming for Scaramouche this week.
Yawn.
It's been torture.
Oh yeah, no, it's hell to farm for this man. I will say that as someone who loves him, it is fucking absolutely hell.
Not only is it hell, but I gotta deal with the mental gymnastics of convincing myself that it won't be for nothing.
And then bring up being like, oh my god, you should play Genshin.
You should.
Are we talking about how annoying it is?
I'm not saying it's annoying.
It's
I'm
just-
pre-farming for a character. I'm not guaranteeing myself.
Exactly.
But you don't have to pre-farm for characters. It's a choice I'm choosing to make.
This guy's name is Mustafa.
They put me in like the worst fucking biome for this world to spawn in, but it works out in my favor.
If I could pre-farm for Alhaitham, I would just skip summoning for Scaramouche.
But we don't know any of his shit because he's just a speculated heavy leak.
Yeah.
Wait,
What? What?
so either his Pokemon is... Yeah, his team looks like it's randomized every time, so I won't have to fight the Arceus anymore. Except now he's spinning back. I got lucky actually, just that he's got lucky. Oh, wait, no, I only have normal type moves, I can't hurt it. Wait, no, I have We'll get Nightshade there. Oh my god, he's taking like no damage and taking more damage.
I'm so sorry. I actually did not mean to hit you.
Stop.
Bruh.
This is a nice size for what I want to do. Yes, it is.
I didn't realize Scaramouche comes out in December.
I keep saying he's coming out on my birthday.
My brain doesn't comprehend anything. It just goes burr 24/7.
Man is coming out December 7th on my birthday. That is a Thursday. When I tell you that is going to be a fun ass stream because I'm coming back to streaming on Thursdays, I just need to fucking stream again.
I literally have 3 birthdays I have to celebrate that week. I have my stepbrothers, I have yours, and then I have John's.
Nope, we're doing Dark Oak. Fuck this. Dark Oak is better.
What's wrong?
Thank you for agreeing with me. Okay.
And
Oh
then,
my god, a Slugma.
and then Alhaitham's coming out next year. Ooh. I'm gonna cry.
Okay, that actually looks kinda cool.
What looks cool?
It's a Bonsley and a Duskull.
You should get 2 Rattatas and fuse them.
I don't think you're allowed to. Oh,
You
shit.
are. You are
1,
allowed
2,
to.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
No.
8.
What would it be then?
You should just look and see it yourself.
It costs money and I haven't even seen her Rattata yet.
I won't tell you, but I'll give you a hint.
I don't think it's the same thing though, because I don't think I
Do I have the Aurora Borealis
I'll give
turned
you-
on for this?
I'll give you-
Oh, that's
No,
terrifying.
It's on that website.
That is absolutely terrifying.
It's a game.
I did not know their eyes glue in the dark. That's terrifying.
I need to get out of that area. I only have normal type moves.
Options, video settings, shaders.
The hint for
Shaders
Rattata
options,
is that
sky.
it's me. It's me.
I don't get it.
Then-
Wow.
Then, ah! How dare you?
I don't know, you're telling me riddles and stuff.
Clowns
No,
don't
I
tell
want the Aurora.
riddles.
I want the Aurora to be on every day, not just a full day. Ooh! 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 Oh my god!
I can't even fight Brock yet.
Good.
I still have no attacking moves. I can hit his stuff.
Fuck off, zombie! I'm having a cute moment. It's so pretty!
I'll get it.
Oh.
I turned on the Aurora Borealis setting.
Lacey just put her tail in my mouth. That was not nice.
At this point, I just started biting her tail.
What?
Which will take?
Catch it.
Moves.
What?
I killed it.
Uh,
This dude got smarter, bro. How come I haven't seen like any captains because the game
What is going on with the lighting?
Forest.
Oh, you're using 2 different bricks.
Yeah.
I was so confused.
Actually, I'm using 1 brick. This is just wood.
Oh.
Shroomish. Oh, do not play Shroomish. I gotta remember that.
Why?
I'm trying to store bits of grass right now.
That's because you're done.
Alright, cool. There we go. Okay, that looks a lot better. Fuck off.
Whoa, what the fuck's happened?
And I can hear Lacey.
No.
She's so excited to get her shot.
Okay, so I found a jolt tick, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's actually a butt tick.
Oh. I don't understand.
It's a butt itch.
Oh.
Oh my god.
I got it. That's what I'm confused with. It is hideous.
How did you think it was a Joltik then?
Because it's called butt tick.
Why are you so sad?
She's so fucking chirpy.
What?
She badly wants her her shot. Goddamn.
Yes. She's like, give me my insulin, please.
Oh my god.
Come here.
When you're supposed to at some point.
Okay.
Because my amiibos came today.
We can play it now if you want.
Okay.
Just let me turn off Genshin.
Genshin suck.
It does not. We're gonna play together. I'll force you to play with me.
Huh?
I'll force you to play with me.
But Genshin's so boring.
No, it's not.
No, after I will give after like the current period right now it is kind of boring.
It's just
He has so much story to go through.
That is true. Do your fucking story quest first.
It is not boring. You're past the bad story.
I'm not. You know, it's forever do anything.
It does not.
Everything's on like the other side of the map. It has to go all the way back to a certain spot.
You're in.
Oh, just wait until you're in the chasm, my guy.
That's where he is.
Wait, are you doing the story that has to unlock the chasm?
He's with Dainsleif.
Oh, yeah, have fun with that shit. That shit's fucking annoying.
It's not that annoying.
Oh no, it was annoying.
Dainsleif helped me get through it. If it weren't for him.
Are you also gonna pull for Dainsleif when he comes out?
You're out of your mind if you're asking that question. What do you think the answer is?
No.
Wow.
What was the question?
Am I gonna pull for Dainsleif when he comes out?
So I have to win 8 games and then go check back to get some more of my gear. I actually have to work for this one because it's Splatoon 2. I already have it pretty much unlocked.
Look at my pretty house. If I bounce, okay, yeah, it gives me that effect.
It's so weird that you can actually start the party now.
Yeah.
Sit. I'm feeding Lacey right now though, so.
I need to make this one or 2 more up.
Wow, I love that banner actually.
Huh?
I just got a banner and it's a pure purple one.
That's your favorite color, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the most boring freaking banner ever. Purple isn't the color that I like.
I'm gonna be honest, that's me with a lot of the Genshin, or like a lot of the Genshin character banners.
Whoa, that is way too much.
If they weren't a color I liked, they would be really fucking boring. I'm just being honest.
I'm gonna get this badge whether this game likes it or not. Did I get it?
No,
Win this game. I'm begging you.
you don't deserve it.
Yes, I do. Oh my god, I still didn't get it. Oh, let me count.
Hey Ren, you wanna know a fun fact about sharks?
Yes.
Did you know that great white sharks can actually camouflage?
Yes.
Yeah, see, they said they knew!
It's not real.
Suck it!
So it's not real.
Yes, it is. If they knew, then it obviously is real.
Again, I was a weird kid, so I kind of looked up random ass shark facts because I was really into sea life. Someone's gonna be like, that's false. I'm gonna be like, well, again, I was a child. I've not invested in my shark addiction in like a year.
No, it is real. Don't worry.
And
There's
like,
a whole documentary on that fact.
oh fuck yeah.
It's not real.
It is.
Alright, how do we like the build so far?
It's the most real shark fact I've ever said in my entire life.
I thought you were saying that's the most realistic house I've ever seen. I was about to be like, bitch, this is not.
I can't believe water won all 3 categories.
You're just jealous.
What do you mean I'm jealous? I was on that team.
That's 30 plus stars? Oh my god. I guess I gotta give a couple sea snails. I didn't want to have to.
Oh, it shows the starters! In the background?
I think it did that always.
I just realized it now. Oh my gosh. I hate to say it, but Team Water really earned the W.
Why?
That's
Why
what
do you hate to say it?
that's what Shiver said.
Goodbye, 5 sea snails.
I guess you'll be halfway happy about the maps, because I know you like Megomar.
I know, I saw that.
What
There's literally no way.
what weapon should I use?
I don't know.
I'm gonna expand this out more.
I hate you.
Ah, yes. Welcome to the sibling bond.
I'm gonna use my gun.
Excuse me?
I'm a cowboy.
Vroom vroom.
Oh my god, it's one off. Oh my god, I have to buy freaking another 5 sea snails. I've been so close to getting this badge for forever, but I hate the stupid brand badges, but they're so cool to have.
I got another logger color. I got the small fry card.
You did?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
it is.
Alright, well, I lose a window, but I do like this being bigger.
Oh yeah, I have it. Took freaking me long enough.
You can hear.
What's up, bud? It sucks that the internet sucks so bad that we can't play together. I mean, against each other.
Yeah.
I don't understand how like our Wi-Fi can go from incredibly good to like shitty in like the span of like a couple of
It's
minutes.
because the internet sucks.
Yeah, that's fair. That is also very true.
I got new shoes and they look more like cowboy boots.
For a second, I thought you said I got no shoes. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, it did it again. It did the unshuffle. Love Joy Time.
Okay. I need to get 8 more wins, and then I'll have to check back the 3 of my amiibos, and they'll give me another piece of the gear. And then I have to go.
Got the same
get
eyes as your
another- I have to
father,
get 10 wins.
and you carry the same kind of temper too.
You should make it.
Okay.
People are
I'm gonna
looking at
get my water bottle real quick.
Okay.
at you. I'll toast citizen through and through because I'm quite like a friend. I'll fuck shit up with you. You know he talks about redemption in the backseat of my car. In the backseat of my car. On the ending, she's the star. Well, now you need to calm down. What gets this energy? When you're about to do me, why not be a little more friendly? Now you need to calm down. So think I need to say my name in her sleep. Thought you knew how better than me. Don't give me that face. No, that the princess. She's still running away from you.
No. I was choosing what I was gonna use. Alright, 1 second.
Told me that she fucking hates you. No,
There
no.
we go.
Calm down.
I'm joining.
Good this energy. When you're devoted to me, why not be a little more friendly? No, no, you need to calm down. She still think I'm neat.
I get
Say
that.
my name in her sleep. Thought you knew her better than me.
How much this shirt matches my shirt?
Knew her better than me.
What do you mean?
I
It
know,
looks like it
I know,
matches
you
your
need to
shoes.
calm down. 'Cause this energy, you devoted to me. Why
I'll try to
not
look
be
when we're in next.
more friendly? No, no, you need to calm down. This energy, and you devoted to me. Why not be a little more friendly? Think I'm neat. Say my name in her sleep. Thought you knew her better than me.
Oh my gosh, it's one of your favorite maps. Let me see. I couldn't see you. I'm sorry. I couldn't find out where you were fast enough. Huh? Oh.
I don't know. That's the word name.
What do you mean?
They have 2 crab tanks and an arrow spray.
Oh no. I mean, I'm the arrow spray.
Why people hate reflux so bad, by the way?
Why?
Because reflux have, it gets potential missiles super
Saw that your heart's on the right place.
What the heck? I ran away from one crab tank just to get hit with another one.
I hate when they just
You go, you're so appealing. I barely see your head receding. Do at the sober. It's always right. You're gonna ride.
Oh.
Get me out of this. You're just scared. Oh yeah, I need water for this. Shit.
Are you an epic gamer right now?
Me?
Both people. I'm thinking how to
Yes.
Nice.
Does this mix? I mean, I'm building.
One of our teammates took the piping in the ink because I know what he's trying
What
to do.
What?
you didn't try out your tomorrow?
Offensive weapon.
Just so appealing.
Weapon for painting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just not
I was like, what do I hear? It's my fucking knife hitting my mic. How the song goes.
Ouch.
What?
I should use my special there.
I didn't fucking tweet that I was live. That's my shit. Whoopsie. I don't stream for a while, brain goes burr.
It's like when you've been hiding in the same spot this entire game, he's still trying, by the way, to go back to the same spot and camp there.
How are we supposed to win if people are just camping?
No, our teammate is. He's trying.
That's what I'm saying.
It's always right. You're gonna ride. Get me
I'm an
out
arrow
of
spray.
this. I'm just scared. Just scared of the
Are you trying to
future.
say I'm not a good arrow spray?
It's right. You're gonna ride. Get me out of this. I'm just scared. Just scared of the future. What happens if I put the wood here?
No. I got Splatoon sweat.
Alright, that's fair. Scared of the future. Actually,
Was that a burst damage up? Like, is that a thing? I said burst again. I will forever say burst apparently.
No, it's just special health in general.
See, they're in danger.
Actually, one.
We did.
1, 2, 3. Actually, I'm not even gonna put. Oh no, the roof's going there. I don't know why I did that.
It was all because of me. I'm not even reading. Number 1 turf anchor.
I don't mean anything.
Yes, it does. It literally does.
The only one painting on our team of an arrow spray.
Oh, I see your problem with the shoes.
You know
What
what?
did you think of my fit, though?
I'm so empty and they're closing up. It's a library.
Trash.
The salt water ruins your clothes, and I hope you spend the rest of your life sleeping alone.
I hate you.
All this over a kiss. You
How did you get that
wonder
much charge
why
in?
you're pressed by this. Now it's turning 3 in the morning. I'm just gonna put a torch like in here just so that mobs don't spawn while I'm building up here. So
Macy's cooler
yeah,
than
yeah, what you need, all this. Oh,
right, I
it's
have a
all
favorite
just a
song. What do you
game.
guys
It's
want?
all just a game. Having my way to sleep on the concrete. Feeding me all this. I'm not
The
sure.
copy machine didn't do anything when I used my special.
They let you off easily. No, we're gonna leave that there. It's fine. This one I'll get rid of.
Burst of damage.
Get more of the. There we go. Pissed off.
I have a question about the special up ability for clothes.
Yeah. No, I'm
What if
saying
you have
is.
the
You left
soda-
yourself
the
at the
soda-
window pane without wanting to hit yourself.
oh
Condensation. All this over a kiss. What there? Why are you pressed by this? It's turning 3 in the morning. Bouncing.
then how did we keep getting
Leave
killed all the
it.
time by people who had all perfect stuff?
You don't care what you need. All this. Oh, it's all just a game. It's all just a game. Having my way to sleep on the concrete. Don't what you say to me.
Thank you.
'Cause I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they let
Oh,
you
now the
off
person hear you.
easily.
Gorm. I know. Yeah. I don't know why you hate this map so much.
There's too many blockades.
You hate blockades. I killed Gorb. But I died.
It's 3:45 a.m. and I just bite my tongue. Undick me on your life, but now you found the one. Well,
What's
I
your
don't
favorite
like his
Splatoon
eyes,
game?
and I just trust the name. And I hate the haircut, they look like a prick, but it's all the same. You dropped in me to cry.
Where is he?
Your tongue is a razor sharp. I misrang goodbye, but let your heart on standby. Way he holds you, and he serenades you. I can't really blame you. But I can still smell her perfume. Did it rub off on you?
Oops, I didn't mean to say that.
I still smell her perfume.
I meant to say ouch, but I said it too late.
Did it rub off on you? You say your ex-boyfriend's a
What is
policeman.
the point of ouch?
Well, say you need better standards. Policeman. I say you need better standards. It seems like all her friends abruptly fell in love, and she was in the dust. Darling, life was streaming past, so she learned to lie. She learned how to pretend. The drama and the futile, a means to an end. Why can't you be a bit? Must you be so nice? It's hard for me to move on when I don't really hate.
It's cringe.
you.
Look how cool it is.
I don't really hate you.
What is she doing? Uh-oh.
The cats want attention.
Oh.
I never think that. Why this guy's
She
beautiful.
wants you to
Yeah,
play
hi Z. Yeah, we turn on the Aurora lights, so they just vibe, especially with the galaxy here. Alright, welcome to the stream, friend. How are you today? Okay, you can stream. Yeah.
I don't understand what the point of this area up here is, but I like it.
We're actually building in Minecraft again. Fuck me.
It's like the area that's got like the little cute cafe run by the jellyfish guy. And then it's- Mhm. Oh.
Because we need a break from Genshin every once in a while, so Minecraft day.
Yeah, probably.
There was the one who made me want to sing Devil's Town. Listen, it's a good song. It's a leave. I also realized their eyes glow, so that's gonna be more terrifying.
Oh, that just reminds
Oh,
me. I need
well.
to get the thing from the gacha.
What is up with you and gacha games?
It's Splatoon. They have a tiny little gacha. You get nothing good most of the time.
Woo!
By the way, Pokemon Masters has been testing my patience recently.
I also could make this a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Alright, wait, I want to see what if this will look like if I
Like,
just
I
do.
keep getting stuff. Like, he has a way higher chance than everyone else, but I don't get him.
Then I might just... Oh, yep, okay, cool. Actually, wait, no.
And then the
Hamilton.
story.
Yeah, never mind, let's
the
raise
game
it, like,
crashes
2
every
up.
time I can try to continue it.
I'll sleep on a shoulder in the break room.
I tried, like,
In the
contacting, like,
breakthrough.
customer support, and they were like, oh, try this stuff. And then I tried it, and it still didn't work.
Shit. Tell us something
So,
new.
if I don't get N, I'm
He's
probably
lying.
just gonna delete it again.
Tell he's lying cause his lips
They've
move.
got one more 11 pull.
To
But
be
if I don't
a
get anything, I'm
reason.
done.
That must be you, what motivates you. That must be you, what
I like
motivates
hearing the
you.
smack sound Charizard does when he uses Heat Wave.
Yeah. Light up his whole room. The kind of things they do to you. There wasn't any cameras. Keeping your dark secret. To talking in your sleep.
I hate them. I hate their little dash. I hate them.
In the kitchen. And tip you if they heal you. If they wanna tip you if they healed you. They got a fever. What pressure would they put on you? What kind of pressure did they put on you? If he's waiting for me. Shut up, zombie. Let us 5 day. Here, 1 sec. Hey! Into
Yes, that's
Try
right.
your rise until the end, chill. Her dad for one. And you stole from him yesterday. So cute when you're so angry. If
I don't
I'm going
understand why
down,
the
you're
person's
going
name is
with
Pearl
me.
and is someone on the up enemy's team?
Just you
Marina?
wait until next week.
I tried to
Keeping
get
your
them.
dark secret. But you're talking in your sleep.
Mhm. Yeah. That's right, you didn't answer me. What's your favorite Splatoon game?
Good sir, get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's a tie between this one and the first one. But I don't know if the first one is just because I liked when we all played together and we had to have someone hide behind the... Yes. Like when
Ooh.
someone had to hide behind the couch because they had...
Oh yes, give me your slowness arrows, please. Thank you.
No.
Under the weight
There's the
of a
Kraken.
broken nose. It's not that simple, but he won't seem to notice. There's more to this. Such as I can, and little holidays. Already boring. Wasn't there one left to
That's so sad.
lunch? And the rappers will say,
What is the update
got
coming
a
out?
marvelous view. We don't know
Oh, so
how
like
many
when
lives
this,
it took now.
like,
No one, what
thing is
you've
done?
been through. We're so gone, but we're fucking scared, fucking scared.
I'm so nervous.
We're fucking scared, fucking scared. Come on, but we're fucking scared, fucking scared. So gone, but we're fucking scared of people like you. With the weights of centuries,
I don't like
couple
this color.
parsecs. It's more than
Which one? Yeah.
now.
Huh? Where'd they go?
Gee, my dear.
Yeah, they didn't.
Any chances this
Oh, they
one
had Ninja
count to
Squid.
you?
I hate
The
Ninja Squid.
rappers will say the marvelous view. Takes most of
We did
the
it. We wiped them out.
tonicness you so.
But Evan, you could play Genshin and do the Pokemon event.
I don't think he can. He doesn't have super unlocked.
What do you need?
So come
but it's
on,
still
my
Pokemon.
own silly apathy, recent grace and souls to build a tapestry.
No, it
I
doesn't.
look to all of you and see a different fucking species. Aspiration for a different destination to me. Across the red line. But new light at night in the fall wasn't something that wasn't also half my fault.
Dang.
Not so high and break. But the fall when you reach the top. Don't cry.
Did you get him?
I did that, like,
Okay. I saw he was hiding in like the tiny.
that side was just because I fucked up this.
Someone's trying to sneak. Oh! Because it looked like he was gonna ignore me. I didn't know he saw me. Because I wanted to try and just cover up because we're getting close to the
Lost the passion that comes with living.
Shut up.
Since
Shut
I
up.
started
That's why I was
university,
just trying to clean up.
took a geography course to learn the datelines and maybe use a sextant. Now I just press facsimile. You're exactly where you wanted to be. That's what you say. If you wanna watch TV and sleep all day and lay in bed, but
Dang.
you're forgetting that I've got to go to work and eat my food and pay my rent and reproduce and feed those
Shut up.
kids and maybe use a sextant. I don't miss you. So thought of what we were. 'Cause this is the part where I shut up and let you vest my brain, wrap your arms around my cortex, let you in, let you drain. You'll never get rid of me. Yo, I'm like a fucking disease. I'll make a home in your gut. And somewhere warm to sleep.
Oh, you can see the weapon I'm using
What would you thought when you realized you'll never feel naive love again? 'Cause the pain was its sickness. Were you proud of who you've been? The shiting waiting for his phone call, placed
Oh my
by
gosh, really?
apathy and dating apps. Tandem felt like flying. I was just another man. Rather he was inside than beside you. He's talking marriage and the future.
It's not my responsibility to paint. I will not be painting.
Your luck he doesn't go into. Stuff in the room is a
I didn't see
suture.
him.
I
Oh my
don't
gosh, that was
miss
awesome.
you. Miss the
Did
thought.
you notice?
what we
did you
were.
notice something? His name is just 3 ellipses,
This
right?
is the power I shadow.
The
And let
periods.
you infest my brain. Your arms around my cortex. Let you in.
But
Let you
his
brain.
his tag is Silent Wanderer. You get it? Do you get why it's funny?
Disease will make a home rocker.
It is funny. Which weapon? Oh my gosh, that was 3 people! Get him! I believe in that person.
It's my day. No one saw that I was late and just tweeted out that I'm live. No one saw
I
that.
wasn't dead when you said that.
No one saw that shit. No one saw shit.
Wow.
There we go.
What?
Oh.
Mm. I don't want to lose this because if we lose this, then that means I have to be Aerospring. I don't want to prevent you from using your amiibos.
Which one you like that immediately? Oh, hey. Nope, that was a comment I left.
Same. Tentamissiles buddies. No. You know when I said that, you know what it reminded me of? It's Toy Story 2. You don't know what it reminded me of? When Zurg told Buzz, I am your father. No. Then they had father son bonding moments.
Damn.
They threw the ball together.
Oh, I know exactly what moment you're talking about.
Yeah, that's like probably my favorite part of that movie. It's not the emotional stuff, it's the Star Wars reference. And then Zurg being a good father. Should I switch my weapon? Or switch it.
I didn't mean for this to have like a very like dark oak aesthetic, but just everything in dark oak is so nice and satisfying to like use. Ow. Ooh, that felt nice. Hi, Skunkly. That is not my...
I had chocolate chip cookies for lunch today.
I fucking skipped lunch.
I didn't only have that for lunch. I also have... What the heck? Oh, you don't know what we had for lunch today.
I was like, I don't know what you were asking me. I completely skipped.
I had a buffalo chicken sandwich for lunch today.
Before anyone asked me, it was completely unintentional of why I
No,
skipped
didn't
lunch.
forget. I did. I had a buffalo chicken sandwich for lunch. What do you mean? Why didn't I want you to remember? That doesn't make... I was asking Ren.
That was for me.
Yeah. they knew it was for lunch today.
It was super muffled.
Yeah.
You're asking the
That
one
wasn't
person who
coffee.
skipped.
Yeah, I forgot you skipped. I forgot. I'm sorry. I hate the sprinklers. They're cringe. Nice. Hey, I died at 420.
Beautiful.
Like literally exactly. I should have just not shot the rest of the game.
I hate shield bubbles so much.
I
Just need to get rid of shielding abilities, honestly.
I killed the blob lobber. Feels like every special we hate them.
In Splatoon 3 at least.
I'm gonna put this lower.
Somewhat balanced.
Oh fuck, that's a ceiling.
You know what it reminds me of? Remember the one TikTok I showed you where the guy was like talking about like the Overwatch characters?
No.
And he was like explaining the skills like, oh, you gotta avoid that because it kills you instantly.
No, there was one guy who was like trying to like talk about being like, oh yeah, like Mercy's not a good healer for this, and this, and you have one guy just losing his shit. He's like, no, that's not how you play, because he's a top 500 player, and he's every time he says something stupid, he just looks at the camera, being like, don't do that.
I used to name Mercy before they changed her.
I'm forever like, why did they change Mercy? Yes, the fuck it was.
Really made her better.
Shut up.
No, they did not. They made her worse.
This is before pre-Overwatch 2. That's what we're talking about.
It's when Mercy was actually good.
That's right. She was good before they changed her.
She was she's still good.
No, she's not.
I mean, she's good, but she was better.
I don't like using her. I miss. Her burst is not the same.
Thank you.
Special is better, so
I don't like it. I die faster when I use it now.
Yeah, I was like, I never liked her new burst. I don't like that one. I don't like Symmetra's.
I liked being able to quickly fly to people who were dying, and then I could save my reviving for the burst. I liked that better.
I mean, I do like the reviving not
Yes,
being
you
like.
were.
it was only your special.
Exactly.
That was it.
I like that better.
That's stupid.
You're stupid.
I'm gonna be honest. I like the.
So much gravity based.
What were you saying?
I like the change that they made with her skill to have the revive be consistent instead of just one moment. I just wish they did something else with her burst.
I guess. I don't know. Whenever I used it when I tried playing it again, I would just die.
Because you probably weren't moving enough. You're just
What? Why'd you just say no? Why is someone on our team's named Fat Julian?
That got me.
What does that mean?
They're Fat Julian.
Uh-oh. Did you get called? Okay. Why were you gone? Oh, were you not gone?
I'm asking if I'm alright. Sometime.
I got Butterfingers.
I meant to look up lanterns. But one thing. When you wrinkle at the nose break, I figure out what that meant. I took it as a taunt. Does anybody ever say no to you? Oh, does anybody ever say no to you? Oh, have a clue. Anybody ever say no to you? Oh, has anybody ever said no to you? Oh.
I think people are finally
I'll tell. You're insecure, you're insecure.
People using it during the Splatfest.
Don't blame
Oh,
the brain
yeah.
tick. Listener, I'm a listener.
That's right, they are endangered.
Anybody ever say no to you? Oh, did anybody ever say no to you? Oh, have a clue.
Freaking roller.
Did anybody ever say no to you? Oh, did anybody ever say no to you? Oh.
I think I just got killed by that person.
So,
Oh no, the T-Rex was. Oh wait, I don't know anymore. Ouch.
So I
I don't
think
like
so.
that guy. I don't like him. This Platana. Stop it! Kill him!
the
Thank
one
you.
thing
Was that you?
under. I took it as a taunt.
Its range and its huge explosion is what makes it so good.
Bye, Lacey. Lacey's
And then the
leaving.
last was
She's on the way.
he's super mad at me. He was gonna actively go for me there.
Stop. 'Cause why'd you have to kill my cat?
No!
Why'd I have to take you back? Time and time I played the empath. I don't know why. The lights on
I
in
guess I'm
an
just
empty
forced
pub.
to use
The
arrows
dial
for
at the seat left up. If close your eyes, it didn't happen.
They were in
One
danger a
day,
little bit ago,
I know
unless
that
they
you'll
painted
be
that
there.
quick.
One day, I'll
Uh-oh.
focus on the future, baby. One
No, I
day,
think we still won. I
baby,
think
isn't
so. Yeah.
life so fucking inconsistent? I know that you will be there. One day, I'll focus on the future, baby. One day.
Your outfit
Baby,
sucks.
isn't life so fucking inconsistent? So let's talk about what I want to do. 'Cause all I want to do is turn back time. Just a couple Tuesdays before I finally left
And
at
then
two.
Georgino
I
wearing
said
Skechers this
it
week, so
last
it's like a
time.
loser.
Hey, yo! Damn!
Stinky's
Not
coworkers said
afraid
that
if I
right next
can,
to
but
her.
in fact, my dear, I'm fucking
I'll beat
terrified.
them to death.
I know that you will be there one day.
Is that allowed?
Focus on the future, baby, one day. Oh, baby, isn't life so fucking.
Have you heard any crazy work stories from Stinky?
I know that you'll be there one day. I'll focus on the
I guess
future,
that's a
baby,
good
one day. Oh, baby, isn't life. Here comes the storm.
Tomorrow I'm gonna try to go to the animation room and record the animation I did so I can show you guys.
Just letting you know.
What?
Not too bad of a weapon you want. Don't let the fact that I want to get my amiibo gear because I'm gonna get it eventually.
But you want to use it now.
It's too long even now. It's
One day, I know that you'll be there one day. Focus on the future, baby, one day. Baby, isn't life so fucking inconsistent? I know that you will be there one day.
I
I'll
have to go
focus.
against my own kind.
Oh, baby, isn't life so fucking
There's
inconsistent?
someone on the enemy's team name is Rat Toes.
Weird fetish, but okay.
I hate you. We're literally Team P right now.
You think he realize, but he's infatuated with our dear passion
Oh, I did
apart
see that,
from
yeah.
social
Is that
policy.
good or bad?
His daddy works on the council. Is in love with Silver Spoon. Will she ever kiss the Tory? This boy was too good to lose. And I'll listen carefully. It's best to the hopeful.
See, you're fine.
Make your way downstairs. You haven't got far to fall. Now it's dead, now it's dead, now it's everything she needs.
I wasn't expecting this kind of bomb spin.
Sad, Saki
The
suffer.
little automatic
Doing
guys,
so happy ending.
they keep spamming those bombs.
I get them all the time.
Oh? Oh? Son of a bitch. We'll see what happens.
I wish you best of luck.
Sleep tonight. Actually, yeah, that worked right there. Because I don't know what else I'm going to add in this little area. We're gonna sleep tonight. We're gonna sleep tonight. Where will you sleep at night? We're gonna sleep at night.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cold
I
sleep
died
at
at the end.
We kept getting pushed back by freaking all those specials. Narcos bombs.
Yeah.
Narcos bombs. You know what I'm talking about.
Cool. I don't think we won this one.
Does it feel to be
Oh!
so loved?
We
How's it
won!
feel to be so loved yet so alive?
I did.
I've been scared, sleeping with the lights on, but she's not there. I know she's going to his bed. Capricorn. But with the lights on, but you're not there. I know she's going to his bed. Capricorn. You say sex. From that. Okay.
So are you fine?
We'll see.
Okay.
Brain just hurts.
Confusion.
Generally. Oh god.
Uh-oh.
Madam, I'm streaming. Ah. Knock the tin out of my
Maybe.
calls for the teeth into my head.
I got him.
I got stuck into a wall where I
No cause for concern.
Oh no, I didn't see you die. Is that what happened?
I hate this map so much. It's so cramped.
See, this is why I can't get rid of my weapon because we always do this.
It's always the egg first.
Yeah, I'll figure out what else to put here, but we have a nice little couch. So we're gonna hurt you.
I got them both.
We're gonna hurt you. I can't wait for the update when you actually get to put bookshelves in the books. It's
Oh
fun.
yeah.
Let's do.
Oh, we got a full team wipe.
Yes.
I was about to say there's really lanterns in my fucking inventory. No cause. Teeth into my head. It's no cause for
I
concern.
ran out of ink at the worst possible time.
It's no cause for. Back what I missed. Oh, I love Halloween. That's done. Nothing much happened. I just, finished an entire house. And just been vibing to Lovejoy music.
Last 10-second ultra stamp is the most overpowered strategy ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing much. Also, my mom's like calling in like 30 minutes
The map is also
for things.
It was
Baby.
pretty close though still.
Kitty.
Should I change back to Aerospray?
Yeah, I basically just like finished the bill.
keep getting stuck. Every time you switch off of Aerospray, we get put up against the most annoying team possible.
I know.
I didn't put an anvil, that's why I didn't put it here.
Oh. Are you excited?
Oh, pfft. That's good to know. Wake
Please
up
tell me there's
in the
good.
morning, up in DMs, counterfeitable by the bed. Papers short and Snapchats right, it's a wonder. I almost spelled that wrong. What just happened? Oh, she come to visit. The kitty's here. Yeah, she's literally right behind me, or she's like behind my setup. And she's going behind the microwave. Anime girl space, just a single message board. Filling up my ink. I see the scrunkly. You guy that you fall asleep on call with, make you forget. Hi, there's a creeper on fire. Okay, that's new. 'Cause I like you, and you like my attention. Skip to the good thing, actually make a net connection. Oh, I haven't had Softboy to this playlist yet. I don't think I'm anywhere near anything. So this is gonna be a fun thing to try to find again. Mom took away my PS4, so I punched a hole through my bedroom. Looks like a Firefox. Yeah, we have a nice little cabin. I might add more to it.
You're back.
Self-diagnosed, thought I should mention.
Not really. You can switch back to that splasher and now be
Yes, we have a fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
Wanna be the girl that you go to sleep on call with.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
I don't care.
find out the people I talk with
It'll be the
don't
default one
like
then.
me.
It was cool because
And
my
I
phone
think
was
you're
my
a
the
maniac.
app let me know I could
Skip.
use it.
To the good thing, let's completely block all contact. Oh fuck, that went the wrong way I wanted. No, damn it.
Oh frick, I forgot about that honestly.
I don't understand why that exists, honestly. It's a nice touch.
God damn it, I went the other way I wanted to go. Sad.
Yeah, probably.
Wait, my PS4. I've said it so many times before.
I
Can
don't know
I
if you did,
move
but
on?
I had the green ink. Or might have the Nickelodeon.
Interaction. Constant.
I think we all do really for that.
Do we?
We have like every single type of slasher except for Blah Blobber. Oh
So
my God,
close.
get ready for missile spam.
Oh no. Is it because the
Affection.
archers have that?
Hell yeah. Where are they, children? Sushi and Gucci are at home. Shiver is also at home. I'm in college, so the Skrunkly is my roommate's cat.
Yeah.
Did you die to it?
No. No, I would never. Me die to a.
But there was no one even. Yeah, you see the problem.
Ooh.
They get it every 30
Why is it always on me? Come on! Again?
Oh, rip, roommate's dead.
weeks too. I've literally been stuck up here painting the base.
Same.
Alright, so this is the winter cabin, and then I have a home one. I can actually... We're gonna test something. Can I fly back home?
The more you kill them,
Are you excited to watch? Are you excited to watch Freebirds this weekend?
when do we even have time?
When I come back, we have the whole weekend. The haircut's not gonna take that long. It's not the same person that we got last time.
Oh, I don't know.
It's
No,
not gonna take
Sushi.
that long.
Sushi is a very affectionate cat. It's Gray Kitty that you may lose a finger to. But Sushi is just kind of just like, please feed me attention.
I saw that. They took out the tentacles.
Marching on.
Do you see them just hopping around down there?
So,
Yeah, I did.
listen, Sushi is my son. I trust this man with my life.
Yeah.
Sushi has done nothing wrong in his entire life.
That's like I can say that for any of my cats.
That they've done nothing wrong in their entire existence.
Yeah, that they've done nothing wrong.
Oh, there goes the Aurora lights. Okay, so we're out of the snowy day.
Einstein gets out all the time.
Not anymore.
He's,
It will leave the door open. You probably didn't even know it was different from a normal room.
he books it whenever Kathy opens the door.
That's because Kathy talks to me a lot out there. Yeah, we're not winning this.
Yeah.
We can't do anything with the tentacle spam. It's ridiculous.
He might commit arson if you give him catnip, though. Sushi doesn't like catnip. We tried to give him catnip before and he didn't like it.
At least he's a druggie.
Oh yeah, no, Shiver and Chowie are like drug addicts. Gucci just looks like he's already on catnip every day.
Have we ever given Einstein
Ah!
catnip?
I think so.
How did he react?
Into
So
flight.
he has like with how small brained he is. I think it would be fine.
Damn, not the small brain.
I can say he has a small brain when he tried to cook himself in the oven.
You know what? Fair. Okay, yeah, I can literally just firework to the cabin. Because I know where this is. Gucci's the one that will commit. No, Grey Kitty's the one that will commit arson.
Pushing last
Oh
second.
no, we won.
I think we won.
Yeah.
We were really preoccupied in the beginning. Okay, so one more win.
Nice. How was I #1 home base anchor?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm really close to home.
Painting the base the whole time. Maybe because I kept getting the tentacles always, I kept up the paint. But I
Oh, that would have been smooth as hell as I did that. Timmy! Those cats are two influences. Shiver just doesn't care. Listen, Grey Kitty hates the twins more than anything existent. He still hisses at them. Meanwhile, Shiver just kind of is just Shiver. He's just like, I don't care as long as you feed me.
I don't want to go to any of my classes tomorrow.
I don't want to go to my class. I want to go to my class on Thursday. Yeah, here we are.
I'm ready for Thanksgiving break.
Please. Please. Timmy. Timmy. Wait,
Why you
Timmy.
got the grandma glasses on?
because it matches this.
What do you mean?
I got the boxes.
Okay, yeah, so this I'm keeping
You're
on
like
me
the-
because it
you're like
goes
the
really
grandma
close to the
from Inspector
cabin.
Gadget.
Hi, babies.
Yeah,
The best goddamn thing added to this texture pack.
yes, she did. I know what you're talking about.
Best goddamn thing.
Ooh, that's what that does.
I do also have to, you know, finish this.
I just remembered something.
Oh my
remembered something. So, did you ever figure out if you liked Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared or not?
Oh!
Oh yeah, I definitely do like it.
Yay!
Thinking about it outside of like,
What?
you know, like on my own time.
Yeah.
And I liked it. That's how I decide.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to the dark side, my friend.
Just letting you know, there is a whole other season that I didn't show you.
Isn't that the first season though?
Yeah. I told you they're not really that connected.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd like it that much though.
Oh, because it is like a lower quality.
Yeah.
I get it.
You don't want to be mean, but like, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it.
One of those things.
Yeah. I definitely rewatched the second season a lot more than the first season.
To be honest,
What?
I don't like the guy who gets smart at the end.
You don't like the yellow guy?
Yeah, I like everyone else though.
That's fine.
Valid criticism. Valid.
Yeah. You said you thought he was too stupid.
There's no turn back.
Jeopardy, try some
Stepping foot
Jeopardy.
here.
No.
Honestly, with this build, yeah, I'm gonna be here
No.
for like a year.
I tried booyah bombing.
I don't think we're gonna win this one, to be honest.
Yeah.
That guy's really good with Big Jet. Why don't I just use that weapon? I'm literally.
Because I also have to build the inside of this. This is kind of just like the cover for it. Being like, there's nothing suspicious here. Don't worry about it. There's no magical shit going on.
Oh my god, Inknock, bro.
I hate that so much.
It's not even a good special, it's just obnoxious.
I'll try to kill somebody and then they pull that out.
Like, it's a good, like, that should have honestly been the replacement for the shield bubble, in my opinion. Because it's, like, it definitely is a balanced
Yes, I need to use stone.
none of this.
I need to do stone under all this so this doesn't fall when I put the gravel.
Like, there's no one in the world who can convince me, like, shield bubble is balanced.
I tried my best. That's what I will say about that game.
We won.
Can you tell where I was?
Yeah, we won.
Yes!
Okay, hit stop this game.
Okay. You excited to use your amiibos?
I still need to get the
I have to use Minecraft build on YouTube.
No.
The headpiece is the most important though.
So can I, but I'm not the best at building. Like, I can teach you how to build like a cottagecore cabin on the ground, but that's really about it.
Honestly, kind of
That's like the only good thing I can teach. Everything else I've kind of just learned how to do myself.
Which one are you doing right now?
you can get them all.
Oh, cause I didn't know which
Once
one.
you register them, you just have to get like 10 wins and then register it. It's 20 wins in total for all of them.
I didn't know if you were like talking about like the delinquent one or not.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna do a little bit of this area, just like actually get like stuff here.
I want that for later on. Also, you know how the amiibos talk to you when you're doing the thing?
Yeah.
For a small fry, it has just like it's like.
Is it like a thought bubble?
For him.
Oh,
Like almost like there's a narrator talking for him.
that's interesting.
Also, I think Little Buddy actually has the best amiibo.
That's not surprising.
When you come over, you'll understand. It's like so cool.
I'm excited.
While Fry looks pleased to see you, it can be hard to tell.
Oh my gosh.
The small Fry seems thrilled.
Because also I'm gonna do.
Recent battles.
Also, this is not gonna be like the actual roof. I have a plan for something else. Yeah, because
Oh my
this
gosh.
is a lot. Why does it look like you're fucking growing?
Small Fry, yeah.
I have not killed anything here.
They won't like you. I'm not gonna make you wait.
At least not to my knowledge. Unless something has fucking died.
I'm not gonna make you wait forever.
It's fine.
Bro, they take forever to freaking get red. It's so annoying. Hey, how's it going? Staying fresh.
Because I'm also gonna do other things around here. I just want to give myself like a basic line.
The bow amiibo, the person with the bow, the most boring amiibo. She's
There we
just
go.
standing there.
Menacingly.
I hate you.
Not at all. She's just literally standing there smiling.
Shut up, I hate you.
You've been throwing yourself into this battle like nobody's business. It's a blast to watch.
Oh, oh.
There we go.
Barely tear myself away to
Which is also gonna darken this area, which is might look cool. Architect wizard, don't be modest. No, like I'm joking. I can't build for shit. Like it took me forever to figure out how to do like the most basics of things
No,
in this game.
that's like saying your buddy. Oh, maybe. I guess because like the chum bucket was full of disgusting stuff.
When I'm buying the Naughty Boys,
The naughty.
The
boys.
walking what?
it's spelled like not like a shoe knot, and it's shoes. Get it? So it's called Naughty Boys.
Oh my
The
gosh.
white one,
Oh my gosh.
but it's called Naughty Boys. I love it.
So you know that person I was telling you about that really likes Splatoon?
No.
I told you about them a ton of times. Do you remember I said that they also say with the scallop?
Yeah.
They were talking to me. They're like, "Do you know about Splatoon lore?" And I was like, "My brother likes it a lot, but I don't think he like the kind of lore that they were talking about."
Like what?
They were talking about like a specific band in Splatoon.
Like what?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
If
you named them, I would be able to tell you.
Don't you have to worry, child. You're here and safe and sound. I will be here for you now. You no longer have to fear. Why
This
don't
was a
you
conversation
rest
I had
your
yesterday.
head? It tight and closely.
I don't remember that.
Worry,
100% emoji swag.
I don't
away
believe you.
from here.
Did you make the room?
Yeah, I did.
I will
Just waiting on somebody.
keep you safe and sound. Don't you worry, dear my friend, I'll be here till the
Using
end.
the tri-slasher.
Yeah.
I can't see you, darn it. I can't see what your outfit is. Evil.
This outfit
Shit.
100% emoji swag.
Ow.
I don't believe
Yeah, I would have died.
Bro!
So my only complaint about the
Like, this somehow looks normal.
you know, Charles,
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Like, this looks semi-normal.
like your feet showing.
Yeah, I get that. Just put on shoes then.
Yeah, but I need it for the whole outfit.
I made the party again.
Your journey is over, now it's time to rest your head.
So
Come
what do you
on,
want?
now let's leave now. You worry about
We
that.
do.
They'll be here
Oh,
at the end. They
you
will
have the
guide you
stupid
to
hat on.
your end. It's time
I hate
to
that
rest.
hat.
I love this hat.
It's the worst one they've done.
It isn't the best hat they've done.
For when they have like that, are they gonna have like rewards like they do for the big run
I
thing?
just realized something.
What?
All of the Salmon Run rewards that you get are more future-based.
They are, you're right.
So it's more like it's Marina one. That's what the Salmon Run rewards are.
Whoa. Oh, so is the apocalypse theme because Pearl won?
Yeah, hers was chaos.
I wish Marina won.
I'm kind of glad that's what won.
Oh, that's my bad. I just realized
Uh,
I forgot to hit Here's the Crew. I've just been I've just been swimming in a circle for no reason.
And so,
The
yeah.
people that follow bombs is insane.
Huh?
The
As
people
long
that
as you
follow
wanna
the
remember
bombs that they
prepares the
throw.
spaghetti.
What the heck is it called?
The curling bomb.
Yeah, that one.
That's insane to
That's
me.
a whole strategy. That's the only point to use that.
Oh my gosh, one of my kin! They're on our team.
I couldn't tell if you said one of my kids or one of my kin.
My kin. There's a rat on our team.
That took me a second.
I'm so happy.
Your children have arrived.
Should draw a picture of something that came to me in a dream with me.
Fragile,
So it's a rat.
I'm right
Also a radish.
here.
It's like a radish.
I was gonna say, Evan, do you know what we could do? Doodle room.
You wouldn't do that.
I would.
I'll stay by your side for right
of grass types.
Rats. We want rats already.
We do? Sprinkling's a rat? I did not know that. I thought it was a shrew.
No, it's a rat.
Are you sure?
At least I think it is.
I don't believe
Call
you.
it a rat.
You're sure they're not just trying to use the rat name in vain? I think they
The
are.
what? The what?
I think they are.
They're trying to do what?
They're trying to use the rat name in vain.
Why?
Because they're trying to use rat as an insult.
What? It's definitely not.
I don't
I
believe
swear she said kids.
Really not. I have a rat team that will have him on it. I'm scared. I don't want to go near him.
Kid still fits. Kid still fits.
Yeah, I mean it's the same word, or it means the same shit.
As the rat king, I accept all rats as my kids.
You're just gonna be the Phils in Minecraft at drawing. You're just gonna have a bunch of rats running around.
No, because I'm so excited for when I get to review Ratatouille. I'm seriously gonna be the happiest person alive.
I'm not winning this. This is why I hate using close range weapons, because I need to be far range to get half these people.
Evan, do you remember at all what happened to Snowball and Princess, by the way?
Yeah,
What happened to them?
they died.
They just died?
I think Mama gave them to someone at work.
Yeah, I thought she just gave them away. I don't remember them dying.
Yeah, me neither. But I thought so. I just figured they did, because that's kind of just what happened.
Yeah.
Ah,
But yeah, I
shit.
think she just gave them away.
Oh my god, I hate Tactibrella so much.
How the hell does this actually look semi-natural? How? How did I make this area look
No!
natural?
Also, they just made it until that guy keeps getting ink fat like every 5 seconds.
Who?
Yeah, we'll see how much of this dirt I can actually like
I don't know.
remove later on.
I fell. I could have killed him.
Because even though most of this
Or
is not
he
gonna
died.
be here.
Oh, in my line, I used to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can
Was
do
that you
the
that just
I can do
disconnected?
the
I
lighting.
was killing the entire enemy.
Oh my god!
Happening.
The entire enemy team disconnected.
Oh,
I think I made them disconnect.
Everyone just got Thanos snapped in that match.
Did it kick you too?
Yeah, it kicked me. Like, I just saw everyone just slowly disappear.
the server said we're going under maintenance now.
Hold on, do you want to make the party?
I don't know, I definitely am not gonna use Tri-Slash or any range.
I'll make the party then.
I'll make
That was a horrifying feeling because people who disconnected just exploded.
That must be a terrifying sight to see.
It was Tony Stark in Infinity War.
I never used Ballpoint before.
What is? I'm curious.
How did I make this look natural
What
as
did you
shit?
ask for Christmas?
Server said it's just a troll, guys. Calm down.
That's it. That's all you asked.
Alright, literally, that's only like the first layer, because then I have this entire other side to do, and then I have this area.
Come on, spill the beans. What did you ask for? How is that it? That's not possible for that to be it. Also from mothers.
Oh shit, I just kicked my extension cord. I'm surprised my extension cord is actually not given out on me yet. That thing has been kicked to shit.
You barely asked for anything.
Also,
How am I supposed to get ideas for gift ideas?
my birthday's coming up. Oh no, yeah, we already got the shit spawning in. I actually might
I'm
let
not
it
getting you Robux.
slash weather rain, not thunder rain. Does it not snow? Does it not snow here?
I snorted.
Oh, you're messing with me. It doesn't snow. Damn.
I
I'll
asked.
tell you a little secret tonight. If you promise not to tell. Well, we can always just do a little
I would
thing.
accuse you of being the
Of-
old lady from Monsters Inc.
If you join the syndicate, we get a little more fun.
I just realized my child exploded in front of me.
me.
Rat! Rat died!
That's traumatizing. History, it's all
What
the
kind of
same
king
in
am
the
I?
end. A shit one.
Wow.
Look, I'm just the bat mother. Shush. cup of
I'm gonna
you.
cry.
Oh, boo-hoo.
I'm gonna end up like the king in that one Try Hard Ninja Minecraft video.
Just throw yourself off a cliff. He's alive.
He is?
Yeah.
I remember
Oh,
there was like
it's
there was
next
like a
month.
sequel. It was like insane.
No, it's a whole like it's either a whole like duology
Yeah, I know, it was,
or it's a whole like series now.
yeah, I know, it was crazy.
It's fucking
Do you think
good.
it's because it
No,
was
it's next
how,
it's
like,
next month, but
popular?
it's literally less than a month. It'll properly once and for all.
Don't forget it's stepfather's birthday tomorrow.
Disgusting. I'm allowed to say that. I hate this man. I have not even met this man yet. I've heard things. I hate him.
He's getting an iTunes gift card for me because that's what he wants apparently.
I told you once.
I just got camped by fettuccine.
Isn't that a cheese?
Yes.
New friend.
Shut up. Don't bully me for that.
Oh, a couple new friends.
They are? No.
Oh, I knew what happened. Oh?
You're the one that knows all the Splatoon stuff.
Do we have
not
another
me.
December birthday?
No, we're not.
It's funny because it's mine and Alice's birthday. He's also a December birthday. I have to message him. No, it didn't go in my
I don't
phone.
like you.
I forgot to add to my phone when Alice's birthday is, but I know it's this month. I just clicked on the wrong Google tab. I just clicked on a stream. Yes, I'm still watching.
It's been so long since your birthday, and you still haven't told me what you wanted for it. I hate you so much. Dude, so you know how I showed you that one animation with the freaking My Singing Monsters song? I have been getting recommendation on top of recommendation of the same song being animated. Yes!
You got so excited.
No, that's
There's
not
a
excitement.
countdown.
It's anger. I hate My Singing Monsters.
Someone sent me that someone made a Hayloft song, like the Hayloft, and I was like, what talent is this bullshit? Take a shot, take it up a notch, we're on the spot.
I thought it was because Lisi's meowing.
Take it to the minute, we can watch them fall. So put your head in the game, we can win it all. Bring the beat, we don't miss a beat. Lay it on repeat, the history. Last tree standing at the final call. No one comment how I said tree. Don't say shit. Win it all. Oh, win it all. Everyone's an enemy
that's
except
me when I
my
look at my
team. Each other's back so we can see defeat.
What did you do, Lisi? Look at. I apparently am bleeding because of you.
Oh!
She cut my wrist. She's gonna make it look like I'm cutting myself.
Hey, yo, chill.
That's only losers are allergic to cats.
Honestly. If you go down under the clouds, you can dance now. Once in a lifetime, and the crowd is there inside. Take a shot, take it up a notch, if we're on the spot.
Yeah.
Actual birthday is just too much chaos even then. Oh yeah, no, it's funny because I'm not gonna be in town for my birthday. I'm going somewhere else, and one of my professors might be coming with us because it's a quote unquote school trip, but also at the same time it's not. So it's funny, because if he is, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, you got a bunch of 20-something-year-olds just together with general just we're gonna fuck around and find out energy.
You make me feel like a child when you say you're a 20-something-year-old. You're a liar. Don't make people think that you're older than me. That's just not true.
I also it also feels just incredibly weird. I'm like, damn, I was literally a minor. How many?
That's the one joy of Ren never having seen you is they don't know how much taller you are than me.
You're taller than I am. Oh my god. But also, I'm back to wearing heels constantly, so.
He's like a head taller than me.
Damn, how's it feel to be short?
Shut up.
How does it feel to have the boy you're down bad tower over you?
Hey, high different stuff is cute. High different stuff is cute. Alright? How tall are you? Do you know the numbers? How tall?
No, cause
How tall are you?
it's funny because I think I'm taller than both Scaramouche and Shao. I'm pretty sure I'm taller by like an inch or two.
I know you're over 6 foot.
It's fine. You can be taller since I'm shorter. Oh
Huh? Nice. That
no!
just
Listen,
means-
listen. I'm only 5'6". Yeah, this looks completely normal. Ignore that. Ignore that entire. But this looks normal.
Okay.
Completely ignoring that there's gonna be. What do you want, Instagram?
Are you 6'4"? Oh.
I was about to be like, if you were 6'4", you're gonna intimidate the shit out of me.
He's not. Actually, he's scary. He's not intimidating. He's just scary looking.
Exactly. I don't like tall people.
Our mother will turn around and jump in fear. It's happened on multiple occasions.
Oh my god, I love the shadow this makes. Because especially when I add the buildings and then I make this look nicer. Because I'm not gonna have this just like look
Overfathers,
like.
you're gonna scare the crap out of me one night. I know you will. You just walk near my door. I'll pee myself. I think
Yeah, no, this was not fun to fucking blow out and mine out. Because then I also have that area I have to mine out, and then I have to re-texturize this entire area.
You're disgusting. Spits on you.
Kinky.
I said that to my brother!
I know you did.
Oh. I want the dab emote so much, but I don't think I'm gonna get it in time.
There's a dab emote? My god. Yeah, because I have to look up how someone did an effect I'm trying to figure out. We're just gonna quickly fly over to the house so I can drop off all the shit I have in my inventory.
You should use the first roller you get. Yeah.
We have to ruined cities,
And then-
CDs, nature.
Do you think Lucy's cute? Do you hear that, Bean?
She's a little shit, first and foremost.
But she's cute.
But she's a cute little shit.
Exactly.
Let me see. Nope, don't have a tab emote either.
You're disgusting. But what? Now you're gonna say Jupiter's the cuter one. You're gonna say Jupiter's the cuter one, aren't you? No, he's just gonna do Monsters Monsters. I hate you.
There's so much pain. My mother is calling me. I will be back.
Look at what you've done. Is this what you call glory?
Jupiter is still a planet.
You believe you're the hero of your story. I longed for peace, but you couldn't leave it be. Now you've played your part in this forever unfinished symphony.
Listen. I will die on this hill as someone who literally got a B in astronomy because I fucked up one test. Pluto's a fucking planet. I'm dying on this hill.
It is a planet.
Thank you. It is a planet.
Jupiter. I still love Jupiter. How dare you say that? Yeah.
I love how we actually got on discussion of planning. I thought you were talking about. I was like, dude, I love Jupiter.
No, that's my cat's name.
I know it is. I just thought it was well fitting for the conversation.
Jupiter Poopeter. Oh my gosh, that just reminded me of something, Evan. I gotta send you a picture. I remember when I sent Jupiter in the group chat at school.
Oh yeah.
One of the teachers had something to say.
I just have a piping Enderman.
I'll show you.
Oh my god, you can see
It's a teacher. I'm
that
having
is
them
terrifying.
Next semester, I mean.
Is that by? Yeah, he
They're
vibes.
They're the 3D teaching. John's playing. Should I invite him?
Who?
The best friend I keep telling you about.
Oh.
Yeah, he is.
Potatoes. Give him a name.
Are you saying I should say my brother?
What
is my
what
best friend?
what are we naming the Enderman? Uranus is just a meme. That would be
can't
Saturn.
say John
Saturn
is my
is the
best
best
friend.
planet.
Okay, fine. He's.
Yes, I know I had my name is Air
he's
Venus
a-
before, but
he's
fuck
a
that.
close friend. Oh, it just fell.
Saturn. Saturn's the best planet. I'm diving on this hill.
I'll invite him. How did you send an invite to everyone?
I'm pretty sure if sticky keys.
Yeah, alright.
Sticky
I'll
keys
talk
are
to
turned
him. I
off.
have to wait till after this match, though, obviously.
Actually, wait, we don't have a cat in here. I just realized we must also get a cat.
Get a cat.
We're getting a cat.
Nuh-uh.
We're just gonna overflood this fucking village with cats. This is no longer gonna be a human village. This is gonna be a cat village.
Evan, I have a question.
Oh,
Are your favorite cats still black cats?
Minecraft?
No. Ragdolls?
Ragdolls are the best cat.
You like ragdolls the most? Maine Coons?
Siamese,
He's part ragdoll, part Maine Coon.
Persian, Ragdoll. Come here.
That's a Persian, I'm pretty sure.
Persians are the one that have incredibly flat faces.
Yeah, he does not like them. He said they have ugly faces.
How dare you disrespect my cats? Oh, Sphinx.
You don't like Sphinx
I
cat,
thought you were
but you're
Venus.
allergic. They're perfect for you.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I mentioned that to someone. They're like, "Wait, you had another name?" I was like, "Yeah."
Alright, hold up. First, I'll send you.
I just happened to like completely change my name. Say it. Siamese are my favorite.
Yeah, just
That's
stop for
that's
now.
the other breed that's Sushi and Gucci are. Come here. Come here. You. I want you.
Okay.
Yay!
I'll just send it to you on Discord.
got a
since I'm
cat.
already there.
Oh, hello. We got a cat.
Jimmy won't
We got a
be
cat.
there.
We gotta change the collar color. I hate how they like did this setup. Hi, baby. Cyan. Listen, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be very hypocritical, but cyan's like one of like my favorite Minecraft colors. There you go.
Yeah. Do you want to see?
But you got okay. We got to one, but I don't want another one.
They didn't. They're just.
Oh
kidding
hello.
about
I
Poopiter.
don't want another one.
Here's a
Calico.
picture of Poopiter. That's Evan's horrifying hand, by the way. I gotta point out how horrifying you are.
Another Persian, another
With your
Persian,
creepy.
another
long
ragdoll,
fingers.
tabby. Don't know the breed of that. Siamese. Don't know the breed. Calico. Siamese.
Oh my gosh.
I said I'm overrunning this village with cats. Please tell me I don't have to go find a swamp to get a black cat. I will teleport.
Nice.
I can only get them in the swamp. Snowball, get your ass over here.
I don't know. Yeah, they're really cool looking. Yeah. They're transparent. It's pretty cool. She's in a cool gal pose.
you're safe.
No, she's
That was
got
an
a
ocelot.
menacing
They're
look
they're
on
the
her face.
they're the cats you can get only in the
I can't
jungle.
tell if John is on or not because he's on. He's got the invisible thing on.
Swamp Hut.
Huh?
Oh, 2,000 blocks away. Let's fucking go.
He's online on the Switch. Let me see what he's doing.
Baby, say goodbye. You can't tell
Oh.
why must you
He's playing
try?
Mario plus Rabbids. He's playing the Sparks of Hope one.
Let go, I'll be okay.
I'm curious. Does he have more hours in Sword and Shield than me? He does. Oh my god, by a long shot. Holy crap. I wanted to see how much hours John had in Shield than me. Do you want to know? So how many hours do you guess John has in Shield?
Is this all for
No.
the swamp? Oh well, hey, that proves it.
You were.
Also, that's
you
what the
were
cats
clo- you
before
were
they changed that there's
closer,
more to
I
the swamp.
guess. So he has 1,430 hours in Shield.
My god. That's
I don't
copper.
believe you. I'm gonna look right now.
Forgive me. Stay
I can't.
with me. You're the love.
No, he played sword. I thought. Oh, you're right. He did not have sword. I thought he did.
I don't believe you. That's not 0 blocks away.
I have.
Fuck around, find out with weather.
Okay, I have 300 hours in Pokemon Shield.
When it's just snow, 3 days looking like a mess now. Driving off the track, and I'm back, and I've seen how this is a bit more my style. Where the fuck is this witch hut? For a second, I thought that chicken was fucking glowing. I was about to scream. Wait, they're ducks! Hold up. This is actual. They're ducks. Nope, I'm allowed. They're ducks. I have to fit. Oh, I forgot the pigs actually had that flower. Oh god, I'm gonna actually have to be like, be careful. Okay, fuck it, we're walking home. I have a cat. Me, I'm better now that I'm free. Other side, I'm back where I wanna be. It was 13 and a half years I spent platform of hell, but I've come back hell bent. I still hate that I have the song memorized. I mean, ducks. Ducks. My style. You should see the other guy. My sunrise, this is my dawn.
Yeah.
If I don't find one, I can honestly just like, I feel like,
Those types of images
oh,
are so
shut
funny.
up and listen. Come on, I need to beat the shit out of a witch. Sorry, Ray. I can sense the presence of Quack then.
I heard her. I heard my baby.
That would have been hilarious if Quack just appears.
You should go on video call so I can see her. Okay. Yes. Show me.
Yeah. Alright, we're gonna do it the other way.
Baby! Oh my god, I love her!
Or is this does this area classify as a swamp?
God. My baby girl.
Oh no, it does. There's just gonna be a lot of areas with cats in this world. Hello! I found you!
What is she doing? I'm making
Hi.
it. Oh my god, I love her.
Yay! We got Shiver.
She's
Alright, we
so
got the cat.
lovely.
That's the winter cabin
I
home.
have never met a cat that loves pets as much as her.
Oh, wait until you meet Shiver. If you ever meet Shiver.
Look at Poops.
Oh! Adorable baby! Look at the baby.
Oh my gosh.
I have to keep this cat fucking on a cat watch. These poor felines are gonna get eaten.
I know.
Nah, there's witches that live in the swamp. She'll take them in a heartbeat.
Is she drooling yet?
Also, they're right next to like a swamp area, or they're right next to the water source. They can get the fish from there. They'll be fine. Or no, they'll despawn before the end of the day.
I'm so not used to the door being open in your room.
Oh my god, I got communication
Bro.
That might have actually been on my side though, 'cause that happens sometimes down here.
Nah, dude, our Wi-Fi sucks when it comes to our phones.
Oh, my general store has a reward actually. Just keep showing her butt.
Where is she? There she is. Passing the time as we roam across the ocean, the waves envelop your mind. Oh, emotion, calling like a lullaby, singing like a siren's cry. Through every night, you prove to me all your devotion.
No.
Oh no, where we'll go under
I
the
am ready.
deep blue below.
Oh no.
Hee-ho, race to the sails, reaching the end of a new adventure here. Red tails,
I changed my hat again.
oh, like the girl in the nest.
You did?
And golden treasure, hee-ho, Captain Skull. Oh, hi, oh, hello there.
What was that about?
You were very, oh. Sorry. Resurrection. One of the rare times I wish I had fucking, there she is.
We went to bed early yesterday. You did.
No,
Yeah, I did.
no,
No!
with the deep blue love. Oh, hee-ho. I've never heard you snort before.
No, don't call me out like that. No.
Hey, there's Brittany snorted. The stream caught it.
No.
There's evidence. Very Twitch moment there, Lo.
No.
Listen, I just saw a pig brain. I saw a baby pig brain just went, oh, cute.
It's just easy to.
Where is she? There she is.
I should be the new English version of Peppa Pig.
I mean, hey, there's already a reboot, so you might as well.
Oh my god, I can't believe I just snorted.
Captain's
I
takes
hate
a call.
myself. Yeah, but never here for some reason. Oh, I'm lagging. I watched the bomb
Chickens!
explode before it disappeared.
Oh, you mentioned that I got lag.
Uh-oh.
But that was just normal lag. It's confirmed she snorts.
No! See, that's the worst possible time for me to snort. Oh, because they're streaming right now.
The stream caught it. The stream caught the snort.
Ooh.
Fuck, love. Actually, I'm pretty sure Jay's birthday is literally next week, so that's gonna be a fun gift. I'm pretty sure his birthday's the 23rd. But again, bunnies! Ah! Hi. There you go. There you go, buddy. You got it. Come on, you got it.
We're winning so good.
I don't care. There's more bunnies! Oh, there's all the babies! Where's the mama?
I'm doing pretty good this game.
Where's the mama?
I say as I die.
Ignore the cat. Where's the mama?
Huh?
Did the mama eat
What
herself?
does that have anything to do with anything?
Ew, the mama might have actually eaten herself.
I like how both of us are like, oh, we're doing so good, and then immediately die right after saying that.
But now we're about to lose because of that.
Oh, oh my god. Oh, oh. I ran out of ink. Oh no, behind you! Oh.
Hopefully that guy paints enough.
I know.
I don't think he will though.
There she is. Actually, wait. The boat will be easier because now you can have two people on a boat. We gotta go with Darkwood. I'm sorry, Darkwood is my favorite Minecraft wood and I will die on this hill.
No.
I don't think it was an English the fact that
I don't like those eyes. Stop it.
Ah, fuck. Oh, not again. Come on, I need you to get in the boat. No. Other way. Nope, come on.
I had.
Oh,
Oh
again,
my
suicidal
gosh.
squids.
I think Lisi's trying to be evil right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've actually never seen what this looks like. Oh my god. He's a cat. He's a cat. He doesn't like water, which is understandable. No, there's a particularly breed of cat that actually likes being in water. I've recently learned. Or that's either someone just like trained their cat to like water.
You should dress up exactly like how I'm dressed up right now. It'll be epic, I think. Your outfit sucks!
There we go. It was a short little boat ride. There she is. Alright, keep me safe from the creepers, my love. I'm gonna get this cat home and then I'm gonna end stream.
It's because you're stupid. No, that's supposed to be my medal. No.
This is how a story hasn't.
No, I don't see where you are. Why are you up there? What are you doing, old man?
Funny enough, if the new Deltarune trailer comes out, or not trailer, like the new part comes out, I might actually be able to do it with Ray and Jay. Or not Jay.
He said he's gonna release the next 3 all-in-one.
Oh hell yeah! Oh, that's gonna be a fun ass stream then.
Shut up. Not you, not you. A certain brother of mine, I'm telling you, shut up. I did.
Where is
I
she?
have 2.
Where is she?
Oh.
Where is she? Where's the cat? I hear her. There she is.
It's because you're silly.
Wait for me, Enderman. Please tell me we're not all simping over an Enderman. Actually, I think I know where I am. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know where I am. Yep, I know that. I know that hand signal. I might have went too far. Yep, I went too far. No! My child! Nope, we're good. I realized I could have just put hi. Speaking of actual cats, she's here. Oh, she's on the bed.
Oof. That's what you get for cosplaying.
Baby! Wait, do they still only have one eye? Look at me. Look at me. Do you guys still only have one eye? No, they fixed it! They used to only have one eye! Or maybe it's a different cow. But there used to be a cow that only had one eye.
Yeah.
Do you feel your sins on you? Judgment
I killed the Nautilus.
day
Ooh.
come upon.
Dang.
Would you feel the pain? I told you we were home. There's the cat.
Yes! No.
There she is.
Your outfit is horrible. Why you got your toes showing?
Why you got the grippers out?
Why you got the grippers?
Never seen the cow that has one eye. There was a cow, the texture pack, that would only allow like a cow to only the texture pack only had the cow with one eye. I used to make fun of it all the time. Oh, thank God you're still here. Come on.
You should.
There we go. Perfect. We're just gonna we're gonna nudge you to the witchy area. Enderman, you have a friend. You have a cat. There we go. No, you are not allowed to have him in the
No.
cage with you. Or not the cage, the fucking, boat with you.
Are they smirking?
I keep doing that. There we go. Color gone.
I hate you.
I will look this up. The
Oh my gosh. I think
better
that is.
better vanilla building cow with one eye.
I just saw the 2 Aerospritz and the blah blah bird. No, I was so close.
No, it's not showing. But there, yeah. One of the cows on the better vanilla.
I wanna, cause this is the only weapon. Like, I only use this outfit for this weapon, so I should really like get stuff, like use chunks to make this outfit really good for this weapon.
Oh, yo, what the fuck?
Wow. Ooh. I had no choice.
Yeah, damn, it's not popping up when you Google it. But yeah, there used to be a cow that only
Our
have one
base
eye.
is not painted at all.
Nope, I don't believe it.
Unfortunately, that's not my job. No. 'Cause I know. I meant unfortunately to you. Because it's
Again, it might have been
job.
fixed. It's a very high possibility it could have been fixed.
ouch. I got blah blobbed.
No, it was you fuck, so that was used to make fun of it. No! But yeah, one of their eyes would not be fully textured.
I have my special
Oh my gosh. What is it?
LG.
Yeah, no, you fucks used to only have one
Why
eye.
did that person just squid bag?
No!
Why did someone on our team just squid bag?
I will look at my most recent
We
Minecraft
deserve
VOD.
to lose.
Can't be so real to become cursed. No, it was actually cute because it was just missing like the hello. It was just missing like the pupil. Welcome to here, would you like to stop for chance? Would you come answer?
Oh, hello.
I have news.
Oh. Okay.
Oh my god.
This school should not exist.
Someone, I don't even know how to explain it to you.
Someone basically said some very ableist shit.
Like, the most ableist you could possibly get.
Apparently the professor cut her off and
No.
said you aren't allowed to talk anymore.
Hell yes!
Yeah!
Yes! Sorry, we're talking about someone we don't like, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they fixed the cow, so now he has both of his eyes, which is... I'm gonna miss my one-eye cow, because
Imagine being told you're not allowed to talk anymore.
That happened in Kelly's class!
Really?
She was like, oh, your views are like slightly like more like conservative. You might want to say that. You might want to stop saying that kind of stuff. That happened to someone.
Dang.
But yeah, no, I will look through because I know there was a cow that only had one eye for the longest time. Like there just would not be the black. It was really funny.
I'm gonna start telling you that, Evan. You're not letting. Yeah, your words are up. You can't talk anymore.
What in the Wattpad fanfiction? You only
You
get
get told that all the time at home.
you only get a certain amount of words.
Yeah, you used up your words for the day.
Arid's live. Arid's live.
I'm scared.
Arid's live.
Oh, you disappeared right when I looked.
I'm completely lost, but hell yeah. So basically, there's this freshman that goes to our school, and she's a racist bitch.
Oh,
And
no,
so
we
she
just
said
got-
some ableist shit in class, and the teacher said, you are not allowed to talk anymore. That's what happened. Alright, we're gonna get the raid going. We're gonna raid Arid, comfort streamer. comfort streamer. I don't care that I only have the one viewer. But yeah. What's tomorrow? Thursday?
Yes.
I might stream tomorrow. I might completely just throw away my non-Thursday streaming. I might just switch Monday and
3 days
Thursday.
in a row.
I know, right? 3 days in a row? We'll see. 3
Okay.
streams in a row? Yeah, we'll 100% try that. I don't know. We'll also have to see how, like, dead I am, because I definitely know Friday I'm probably gonna be dead, but still gonna stream. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching my build, even though, like, half the time we just explored and talked. But yeah, thank you so much. I will see you hopefully all tomorrow. Bye!